The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and destiny. For millennia, the Jedi believed they understood its nature: light and dark, balance and corruption, the eternal dance of cosmic power. But what happens when something arrives that doesn't belong to the Force at all? When a warrior from beyond the stars brings his own power, his own philosophy, and his own unyielding will. The Clone Wars had turned Felucia into a perpetual battlefield. Its bioluminescent forests, once teeming with exotic life, now hosted daily skirmishes between Republic clone troopers and Separatist battle droids. Jedi General Ila Sakura had established a forward position near the planet's equator, coordinating with Commander Bly's forces to push back a renewed CIS offensive. The humid air hung thick with the smell of scorched vegetation and overheated metal. Ayla stood atop a fungal ridge, her blue skin glistening with moisture as she surveyed the battlefield through the electro-binoculars. The Separatists were regrouping near the western valleys, likely preparing for another. The sky tore open, not metaphorically. The actual fabric of space above Felucia's atmosphere split like cloth, revealing a swirling vortex of impossible colors that had no place in any star chart. Energy crackled across the rift with a sound that made every clone trooper grab their helmets in pain. Ayla stumbled backward, her connection to the Force suddenly screaming warnings that made no sense. This wasn't dark side energy. It wasn't light side either. It was other. Something fell through the tear, a white sphere trailing green energy, spinning wildly as it plummeted toward the jungle below. The rift sealed behind it instantly, leaving only the afterimage burned into everyone's retinas and a profound sense that the galaxy had just changed in ways no one could predict. The sphere crashed into the fungal forest 3 kilometers from the Republic position, with enough force to flatten 200 meters of ancient growths. The impact shockwave knocked battle droids off their feet and sent clones diving for cover. When the dust settled, a crater smoldered where rare Felucian flora had stood moments before. Commander Bly's voice crackled over the comlink. "General, what in the blazes was that? Separatist superweapon?" Ayla reached out with the Force, trying to sense what had arrived. Her eyes widened. I don't know. There's something down there. Something alive. Something powerful." She ignited her blue lightsaber, its familiar hum a small comfort against the unknown. "Assemble a squad. We're investigating before the Separatists do." In the crater, the white sphere cracked. Fragments fell away, revealing it to be some kind of organic pod, a spacefaring vessel grown rather than built. Green fingers, only 4 of them, pushed through the opening. The being that emerged stood over 7 feet tall, his body covered in green skin that seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. He wore a purple guy with a white cape and turban, looking absurdly formal for someone who'd just crashed through dimensional barriers. Piccolo took a breath of Felucia's humid air and immediately grimaced. The atmosphere was wrong. Too thick, too wet, and the energy permeating everything felt alien against his senses. He'd been meditating in the Lookout's upper chambers when Goku and Vegeta's latest sparring match had destabilized a nearby dimensional wall already weakened by Shenron's recent summons. The resulting cascade had torn him from Earth and thrown him here, wherever here was. He extended his senses, searching for familiar key signatures. Nothing. Not Goku's blazing energy, not Vegeta's controlled fury, not even Gohan's scholarly power. Instead, he felt something else entirely. Thousands of small energy signatures throughout the jungle, and several larger ones approaching rapidly. But their energy felt wrong, like it was flowing through them rather than originating from within. It reminded him uncomfortably of how energy absorption felt, except this seemed natural to these beings. Piccolo's antennae twitched as he picked up mechanical sounds. Lots of them, and voices, humanoid voices shouting orders in a language he didn't recognize, though somehow his mind translated the meaning. Some kind of automatic translation effect in this universe? "Spread out! Surround the crater! Stun setting only until we identify the target." The Namakin's eyes narrowed. He'd landed in the middle of a war zone, clearly. His cape billowed as he rose into the air, using Bukujutsu, ascending above the crater's edge to assess the situation. What he saw made him pause. Dozens of identical soldiers in white armor were taking positions around the crater, their weapons trained on him. Behind them, a blue-skinned woman in brown robes held a glowing blue sword made of pure energy. Her eyes met his, and Piccolo felt that strange flowing energy spike around her, curiosity mixed with caution and fear. "Identify yourself," Ayla called out, her lightsaber held in a defensive Sorsu stance. The force rippled around this being like nothing she'd ever encountered. He wasn't force-sensitive. She would stake her life on that. Yet he radiated power that made her instincts scream danger. His energy signature was completely alien, operating on principles she couldn't begin to comprehend. Piccolo crossed his arms, floating 20 feet above the ground with casual ease that made every clone's finger tighten on their triggers. Levitation without visible technology, without any machinery at all. Commander Bly had seen Jedi perform incredible feats, but this felt different, more raw, more physical. "My name is Piccolo," the Namekian said, his deep voice carrying clearly across the clearing. "I'm not from this place. I was brought here against my will." He studied the armed forces below, calculating odds and threats from pure habit. "I don't want trouble, but I won't be captured or experimented on either." Ayla felt the truth in his words through the Force, or at least she felt no deception, but his power. "You're not a Jedi. You're not Sith. What are you?" Piccolo's expression remained neutral, but inwardly he was already adapting to this strange new reality. These people had their own power system, clearly. Different rules, different energy. But warriors were warriors across any universe, and he recognized the stance of someone prepared to fight if negotiations failed. "I'm a warrior," he said simply, "from a place you've never heard of. Earth." In the jungle shadows beyond the Republic position, probe droids relayed everything they recorded to a separatist command ship in orbit. Count Dooku watched the hollow projection of the green-skinned being with intense interest, his connection to the dark side whispering of opportunity. This creature's power didn't touch the Force at all, which meant it couldn't be predicted, manipulated, or corrupted through traditional means. But it could perhaps be recruited. "Prepare a capture team," Dooku ordered, his cultured voice carrying absolute authority. "I want that being alive and unharmed. General Grievous, you will lead the operation personally." The cyborg general's mechanical laugh echoed through the command center. "Yes, my lord. Another prize for my collection." On Coruscant, in a shadowed office where democracy came to die in thunderous applause, Palpatine felt a disturbance. Not in the Force itself, which made it all the more concerning. Something had arrived in his carefully orchestrated galaxy, something that didn't fit into his grand design. The Sith Lord's eyes narrowed as he reached out across the stars, trying to perceive this anomaly. All he found was silence where power should be, a blind spot in his omniscient vision. For the first time in years, Darth Sidious felt something approaching concern. Back on Felucia, Piccolo lowered himself to the ground slowly, hands still visible and non-threatening, despite his words. He needed information before making any decisions. And these soldiers, these clones, he realized, noting their identical faces, seemed organized and professional. The blue woman with the energy sword carried herself like a leader, someone used to command. "I'm willing to talk," Piccolo said carefully, "but I need to understand where I am, what this place is, and how I can get home." Ayla deactivated her lightsaber, though her hand remained near the hilt. "Trust, but verify." "Lower your weapons," she ordered the clones, though Bly's hesitation was clear. "He hasn't attacked. We follow Republic protocols." She stepped forward, closing the distance to 10 meters. "You're on Felucia, in the Outer Rim territories. This is the Galactic Republic, and we're at war with the Confederacy of Independent Systems." Piccolo processed this. Multiple star systems, galactic government, ongoing war. Not so different from his own universe's conflicts, just larger scale. "And you? Your soldiers?" "I'm Jedi General Ayla Secura. These are clone troopers of the Grand Army of the Republic." She studied him carefully. "You said you're from Earth? That's not in any star chart I know. How did you arrive here?" "Dimensional accident," Piccolo said, seeing no point in elaborate lies. "A tear in space during a battle on my world. I was pulled through against my will. Before Ayla could respond, Commander Bly's voice crackled urgently over the comlink. General, sensors are detecting incoming separatist forces. Multiple dropships led by... Oh no, it's Grievous. Piccolo's antennae picked up the mechanical whine of approaching engines. He looked up to see angular ships descending through Felucia's atmosphere, their hulls bristling with weapons. His warrior instincts immediately cataloged threats, escape routes, and tactical advantages. Whatever political situation he'd landed in, one thing was clear. The fight was coming to him whether he wanted it or not. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Separatist dropships descended like metallic vultures, their repulsor lift engines whining as they dispersed battle droids across the jungle perimeter. Piccolo watched with calculating eyes as hundreds of skeletal automatons emerged from the transports, their mechanical voices chattering acknowledgments to unseen commanders. These weren't warriors. They were disposable soldiers, mass-produced cannon fodder designed to overwhelm through numbers rather than skill. The largest transport remained airborne, its bay doors opening to reveal a figure that made every clone trooper's grip tighten on their blasters. General Grievous dropped 30 feet to the ground, landing with a heavy metallic thud that cracked the fungal surface beneath his clawed feet. The cyborg general stood hunched forward, four arms hanging at his sides, a tattered cape billowing behind his skeletal frame. Yellow eyes fixed on Piccolo with predatory interest. Well, well, Grievous rasped, his mechanical voice grating like metal scraping metal. Count Dooku was correct. A new specimen for my collection. His hand moved to his belt where four lightsabers hung like trophies. I wonder how many of your limbs I'll need to remove before you cooperate. Piccolo's expression didn't change, but his power level spiked instinctively. This creature radiated confidence born from countless victories, and the energy signatures from those cylindrical weapons matched the one the Blue Woman carried. Stolen from defeated enemies, clearly. A trophy hunter who collected from the dead. The Namekian had dealt with worse. General Secura, Commander Bly's voice was tense over the comlink. Orders. We're outnumbered 3-1, and with Grievous here, form defensive positions, Ayla commanded, her tactical mind racing. Between the separatist forces and this unknown entity called Piccolo, the situation had become exponentially more complicated. She reached out through the Force, trying to read Grievous's intentions, but found only the cold void that always surrounded the cyborg. No emotional signatures to interpret, no life force to measure, just mechanical hatred and programmed violence. Then she tried to sense Piccolo again, hoping for some insight into how he'd respond to the threat. Still nothing. The blind spot where he stood was almost worse than Grievous's emptiness. At least with the cyborg, she understood the absence. With Piccolo, it felt like trying to perceive something that existed in a completely different spectrum of reality. I'm going to give you one chance, Piccolo said, his voice cutting through the ambient jungle sounds. He remained perfectly still, arms crossed, cape motionless despite Felucia's humid breeze. Leave now. I didn't come here to fight in your war, but I won't be captured or dissected by machines. Grievous's mechanical laugh echoed across the clearing. You misunderstand your position, alien. You're injured. I can see the burns on your hands from atmospheric entry. You're alone. You're outnumbered. The cyborg's forearms spread wide in a gesture of mock generosity. Surrender peacefully, and I'll ensure your captivity is relatively comfortable. Piccolo glanced at his hands. The crash through dimensional barriers had indeed scorched his skin, and the impact with Felucia had cracked two ribs he'd been ignoring. In his own universe, these would be minor inconveniences. Here, with his ki flow still adjusting to the ambient energy interference, they were taking longer to heal than normal. Maybe another hour before full regeneration kicked in properly, but minor injuries had never stopped him before. Commander, Ayla said quietly, her hand moving to her lightsaber hilt. When this starts, and it will start, focus on the droids. I'll handle Grievous. General, with respect, you can't take Grievous alone. We should retreat to the secondary position and... There's no time. Ayla felt the tension building like static before a lightning strike. Whatever happened in the next few seconds would define this entire operation. Trust the Force, Bly, and trust me. Piccolo's enhanced hearing caught every word despite their attempts at discretion. These clones were loyal to the woman, genuinely loyal, not programmed or coerced. That spoke well of her leadership. The cyborg, however, commanded through fear and violence. The battle droids showed no initiative, no creativity, just mechanical obedience. The Namekian made his decision. I said leave, Piccolo repeated, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. I won't say it again. Grievous's response was instantaneous. Open fire, disable the target. 300 battle droids raised their blasters in perfect synchronization. The clearing lit up with crimson energy bolts, a deadly storm of blaster fire converging on Piccolo's position. Clone troopers dove for cover, expecting to see the alien cut down in the opening salvo. Instead, Piccolo moved. His speed shattered every expectation. One moment he stood in the crater's center, the next he'd appeared 30 feet to the left, the air crackling where he'd been standing. Battle droids tracking his movement couldn't compensate fast enough, their blaster fire hitting empty space or each other as they swiveled to acquire the new target. Ayla's breath caught. That wasn't force speed. She'd seen masters use that ability countless times. This was something else. Raw physical velocity that left after images in its wake. No force enhancement, no midi-chlorian manipulation, just pure muscular power exceeding what should be possible for a being that size. Piccolo's hand extended, fingers spread. He'd been testing his Kai control since arriving, feeling how this universe's ambient energy interfered with his natural flow. It was like trying to punch underwater. Increased resistance, decreased efficiency. But decreased efficiency didn't mean powerless. Let me show you the difference between a warrior and a machine, Piccolo said. Golden energy erupted from his palm, not the elegant plasma of a lightsaber, but raw, concentrated power that illuminated the jungle like a miniature sun. The Kai blast, operating at roughly 70% of his normal capacity due to universal interference, streaked across the clearing and detonated in the center of the droid formation. The explosion vaporized 40 battle droids instantly. Another 60 were blown apart by the shockwave, their components scattering across the fungal floor like metallic rain. The survivors stumbled in confusion, their programming unable to classify the attack. No blaster signature, no lightsaber resonance, no force disturbance. Their sensors simply registered catastrophic energy discharge from unknown source. Commander Bly watched from behind his cover position, his jaw slack beneath his helmet. What was that? I don't know, Ayla whispered, her connection to the Force rippling with confusion. She'd felt nothing before that blast, no gathering of energy, no manipulation of the cosmic force, no warning at all. 1 second nothing, the next an explosion that rivaled thermal detonators. He's not using the Force. That's his own power. Grievous's yellow eyes narrowed. The cyborg's tactical processors immediately recalculated threat assessments. This wasn't just another Force user with predictable abilities. This was something genuinely unknown. Dangerous because it couldn't be anticipated through conventional analysis. The general ignited all 4 lightsabers simultaneously, their blue and green blades humming to life. Impressive, he admitted, his mechanical voice carrying a note of genuine interest. You'll make an excellent addition to my collection after all. Piccolo didn't respond verbally. Instead, he exploded forward, his speed creating a sonic boom that shattered nearby fungal stalks. He closed the 100-meter gap to Grievous in under 2 seconds, his fist already pulled back for a devastating strike. The cyborg's combat programming engaged at full capacity. 4 lightsaber blades spun in a defensive pattern that had defeated dozens of Jedi Masters, creating an impenetrable barrier of plasma energy. Piccolo's punch should have been deflected or severed at the wrist. Should have been. The Namekian's fist stopped 1 inch from the spinning blades, and he opened his hand. Point-blank range energy discharge, a technique he'd perfected against opponents who thought close quarters meant safety. Golden light exploded between them, the shockwave sending Grievous sliding backward through the dirt, his cape shredding from the energy backlash. Impossible! Grievous snarled, his optical sensors flickering from the electromagnetic interference. No organic can generate that kind of energy output without. Piccolo was already moving again, appearing above the cyborg with his leg extended. An axe kick powered by energy-enhanced muscles crashed down toward Grievous's skull. The general rolled aside at the last instant, bringing two lightsabers up in a crossing parry that would have bisected most opponents. Piccolo's leg collided with the plasma blades and held. His ki, instinctively flaring to protect his body, created a momentary barrier that prevented the lightsabers from cutting clean through. The energy sword sizzled against his skin, burning through the protective ki layer, but not fast enough. Piccolo twisted midair, using the contact point as leverage to deliver a spinning kick with his other leg that caught Grievous square in the chest. The impact sent the cyborg general flying 50 feet, his metal body carving a trench through the fungal ground before he crashed into a massive tree. Pieces of his armor plating cracked from the impact, sparks flying from damaged servos. Ayla stood frozen, her lightsaber hanging limp in her hand. She just watched someone kick General Grievous, the Jedi killer, the unstoppable hunter who'd slain countless masters, like he was a training dummy. The Force sang with shock and awe from every clone trooper around her. "All units," she heard herself saying into the comlink, her voice distant. "Hold position. Do not engage the green-skinned being. Repeat, do not engage." "General," Bly's confusion was clear. "But he's attacking the Separatists. Shouldn't we support?" "We don't know what he is, Commander. Until we do, we observe." Piccolo landed lightly, his weighted cape settling around him. His leg burned where the lightsaber had made contact. First-degree burns. The plasma had managed to overcome his ki protection after sustained contact. Interesting. Those energy blades were more dangerous than they looked. He'd need to avoid extended exposure until his body fully acclimated to this universe's physics. Behind him, the remaining battle droids were falling back, their programming recognizing a threat beyond their capacity to handle. Smart machines, at least. Smarter than their general. Grievous pulled himself from the wreckage, his mechanical body sparking and grinding. Damage reports flooded his visual display. Cracked chest plate, compromised respiratory system, damaged servos in left upper arm. This creature had done more damage in 30 seconds than most Jedi manage in entire duels. The cyborg's tactical processors ran probability calculations. Victory odds, declining. Capture probability, minimal. Recommended action, strategic withdrawal. Grievous hated his tactical processors. "This isn't over, alien," the general rasped, his damaged vocabulator making his voice even more grating. "Count Dooku will want to meet you. When he extends his invitation, I suggest you accept. He's far more persuasive than I am." The cyborg activated his wrist communicator, and the remaining Separatist forces began retreating to their transports. Within minutes, the dropships lifted off, their engines straining as they climbed toward orbit. Grievous stood in the doorway of his transport, staring down at Piccolo until the ship vanished into Felucia's thick cloud cover. Silence fell over the clearing, broken only by the crackle of burning vegetation and the mechanical groans of destroyed battle droids. Piccolo turned to face the clone troopers and their Jedi commander. His breathing was steady despite the exertion, his posture relaxed but ready. The burns on his leg were already beginning to heal, green skin knitting back together at a visible rate that made Commander Bly's eyes widen behind his helmet visor. "So," Piccolo said calmly, as if he hadn't just single-handedly driven off one of the galaxy's most feared military commanders. "Can we talk now, or do you have more machines that need to interrupt us?" Ayla Secura, Jedi general and veteran of countless battles across the Outer Rim, realized she had absolutely no idea how to classify what she just witnessed, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Clone Wars had just become infinitely more complicated. The Republic medical frigate Resolute's Grace hung in orbit above Felucia, its white hull gleaming against the planet's purple-tinged atmosphere. Inside its main briefing room, Ayla Secura stood before a holographic projector displaying a frozen image of Piccolo mid-combat, his fist wreathed in golden energy as he struck at General Grievous. Around the holoprojector, 4 figures observed with varying degrees of concern. Jedi Master Plo Koon's masked face tilted thoughtfully as he studied the recording. Fascinating. No disturbance in the force whatsoever, yet the power output rivals a thermal imploder. More than rivals it, corrected Admiral Wolf Ullerin, the Republic naval officer who commanded the fleet in this sector. His weathered face showed the strain of 3 years' continuous warfare. Our sensors registered the energy signature as completely unknown. Not plasma, not particle beam, not any conventional weapon we've cataloged. Jedi Master Kit Fisto's head tentacles swayed as he leaned forward, his perpetual smile fading to genuine concern. And you're certain he's not force-sensitive? Not even latently? I'm certain he's different, Ayla replied carefully. She'd spent the last 6 hours in meditation, trying to understand what Piccolo represented. He exists outside the Force entirely. When I reach out to sense him, there's nothing. Not darkness, not light, not even the neutral presence of droids or inanimate objects. He's a blind spot in the Force itself. The fourth figure in the room stepped into the holoprojector's light. Jedi Master Luminara Unduli adjusted her robes, her expression grave. The Council must be informed immediately. An entity with that level of power operating beyond the Force's influence. It's unprecedented, dangerous. Dangerous? Ayla's Leku twitched with frustration. He defended us, Master Unduli. He drove off Grievous when we were outnumbered and outgunned. If he'd wanted to attack Republic forces, we'd all be dead. Which makes him even more concerning, Luminara countered evenly. Power without the Force means power without balance. No light to guide him, no dark to corrupt him, just raw strength operating on unknown principles. How can we trust what we cannot understand? Plo Koon raised a clawed hand, his voice modulated through his breathing mask. Perhaps understanding should be our first priority before passing judgment. General Sakura, you've spoken with him. What's your assessment of his character? Ayla replayed the conversation she'd had with Piccolo after the battle, sitting among the ruins of separatist battle droids while clone medics treated minor injuries. The Namekian had been direct, almost brutally honest. He'd explained his origin, a warrior from a planet called Earth, transported here by accident during what he called a dimensional rift. He'd described his world's conflicts, his role as a protector, and his desperate need to return home. What struck her most wasn't his power, but his restraint. He could have killed Grievous. She'd seen the moment where Piccolo had the cyborg general at his mercy, one hand glowing with that terrifying golden energy, aimed directly at Grievous's head. Instead, he'd let the separatist forces retreat. He's a warrior, Ayla said finally, but not a conqueror. He fights to protect, not to dominate. He reminds me of... She hesitated, knowing how this would sound. He reminds me of what the Jedi are supposed to be, before we became generals. The room fell silent. Luminara's eyes narrowed, but she didn't challenge the observation. Every Jedi in the room felt the weight of their compromised position. Peacekeepers forced to lead armies, diplomats wielding lightsabers on battlefields, guardians of the Republic executing military strategies instead of maintaining balance. Where is he now? Kit Fisto asked, breaking the tension. Observation Bay 3, Admiral Yularen replied, under voluntary confinement. He agreed to remain aboard the ship while we determined how to proceed. Said he needed time to adjust to local energy patterns anyway, whatever that means. In Observation Bay 3, Piccolo sat cross-legged in meditation, floating 3 feet above the floor without any visible means of support. The room's environmental sensors had gone haywire within the first hour. Temperature fluctuations, electromagnetic anomalies, and gravity readings that made no sense according to Republic physics. The technicians had eventually given up trying to calibrate their instruments and simply monitored from outside. The Namekian's consciousness expanded outward, mapping this new universe's fundamental nature. Kai in his home reality flowed naturally, an energy source that every living being possessed and warriors like himself could manipulate to extraordinary degrees. Here something else permeated everything. That strange flowing energy the Jedi woman had wielded, connecting every organism in an invisible network. It wasn't hostile to his Kai exactly, more like incompatible frequencies trying to harmonize. His body's natural energy generation kept interfering with the ambient force energy, creating static that disrupted his usual precision. That's why his first energy blast had been only 70% effective. That's why his regeneration was slower than normal. But he was adapting. Hour by hour, his Namekian physiology adjusted to the new universal constants, finding ways to generate ki that didn't clash with the force's omnipresent field. It was like learning to breathe underwater. Awkward at first, but his body's natural resilience was already compensating. A door hissed open behind him. Piccolo didn't turn around, but his enhanced hearing identified three distinct heartbeats. Two humanoid, one mechanical. His antennae twitched, picking up the subtle emotional tension carried in their breathing patterns. Your meditation technique is impressive, Plo Koon's modulated voice observed. Levitation without visible technology or force manipulation. How? Energy control, Piccolo replied without opening his eyes. In my universe, we call it ki, life energy that exists in all living things. Warriors learn to harness it, shape it, use it to transcend normal physical limitations. Ayla entered the room slowly, her hand near her lightsaber hilt out of habit rather than genuine threat assessment. This Kai, it's different from the Force? Completely. Piccolo finally opened his eyes and lowered himself to the floor in a smooth, controlled descent. He stood, his 7-foot frame making even Plo Koon seem small. Your force connects things, flows between them. My ki originates from within. Self-generated, self-sustained. Related power sources maybe, but fundamentally different mechanics. The third visitor stepped forward, a clone trooper in commander's armor, his helmet tucked under one arm. Commander Bly had volunteered to accompany the Jedi Masters, insisting that the soldiers who'd fought alongside the alien deserved representation in these discussions. Sir, Bly said, addressing Piccolo with the same respect he'd show a Republic officer. The men wanted me to convey their gratitude. You saved a lot of lives today. Whatever your reasons, whatever you are, that matters to us. Piccolo's expression softened slightly, a rare moment of genuine emotion crossing his normally stoic face. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because those machines were trying to kill me, and your soldiers were in the way. Practical decision. Practical or not, Kit Fisto said from the doorway, his perpetual smile returning. You made an enemy of the Separatists today. General Grievous doesn't forget threats to his reputation. And Count Dooku, the Jedi Master's expression grew serious. Dooku collects powerful beings like trophies. He'll come for you. Let him. Piccolo crossed his arms, his weighted cape settling around his shoulders. I've faced worse than a cyborg with stolen swords and an old man with delusions of grandeur. Ayla felt a chill run through her connection to the Force. Piccolo couldn't know that Count Dooku was one of the most powerful Sith Lords in the galaxy. A master of the dark side who'd trained under Yoda himself before falling to corruption. The Namekian's confidence wasn't arrogance. It was genuine assessment based on power levels that existed completely outside the Force's framework, which meant he had no way to measure how dangerous Dooku truly was. You don't understand, Ayla said carefully. Count Dooku isn't just a military commander. He's a Sith Lord, a master of the dark side of the Force. He can manipulate minds, crush organs with a thought, call down lightning from his fingertips. He's fought multiple Jedi Masters simultaneously and won. Piccolo absorbed this information, his analytical mind cataloging the threat profile. Psychic powers, energy projection, enhanced combat abilities through this dark side of their energy system. Similar to some of the psychic warriors he'd faced on Earth, but potentially more refined through centuries of tradition and training. These Sith, Piccolo said, they're your primary enemy? Beyond the political war with the Separatists? Plo Koon and Ayla exchanged glances. The Clone War's true nature, the Sith's return, and their manipulation of both sides, was supposed to be classified information. But if Piccolo was going to survive in this galaxy, he needed to understand the real stakes. The Sith were thought destroyed 1,000 years ago, Plo Koon explained. They operate in secret, manipulating galactic events from the shadows. Count Dooku is one. There's another, Darth Sidious, whose identity remains unknown. Together they orchestrated this entire war to weaken the Jedi Order and corrupt the Republic from within. Piccolo's eyes narrowed. A war built on manipulation and lies. Soldiers dying while hidden masters pull the strings. His fists clenched, familiar anger rising. He'd dealt with this before. King Piccolo's reign of terror, Frieza's empire, the manipulations of beings like Babidi. Different universe, same pattern. The powerful preying on the weak through deception and control. If you're offering me sanctuary aboard this ship, Piccolo said slowly, I assume you want something in return. Information? Combat assistance? Alliance against these Sith? We want to understand you, Luminara Unduli said from the doorway, having arrived silently during the conversation. Her presence carried the weight of Jedi authority, stern but not hostile. Your power operates outside our framework of understanding. That makes you either a tremendous asset or a catastrophic threat. Or both, Piccolo replied flatly. I've been both before. The honesty caught them off guard. Most beings with Piccolo's level of power would deny their dangerous nature, would seek to reassure and deceive. Instead, the Namekian acknowledged the truth without hesitation or apology. My priority is returning home, Piccolo continued. Earth needs its defenders, and I have responsibilities there. But until I find a way back through dimensional barriers, I'm stuck in your galaxy. Which means I need allies who can help me understand this place, access information about dimensional travel, and survive whatever threats emerge from my presence here. And in exchange, Ayla asked, I'll fight your battles, when necessary. Piccolo's antennae twitched as he sensed something, a disturbance in the ship's normal ambient energy. But I won't be controlled, I won't follow orders blindly, and I won't participate in your political games. I'm a warrior, not a politician. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the medical frigate. Admiral Euleran's voice crackled over the intercom, barely controlled panic bleeding through his professional tone. All Jedi to the bridge immediately. We have incoming Separatist fleet, 30 capital ships and a Providence-class destroyer bearing Count Dooku's personal insignia. Plo Koon's masked face turned toward the ceiling, his connection to the Force rippling with dark premonition. He's here. Dooku's come for the Namekian. Fast response, Kit Fisto observed, his hand moving to his lightsaber. They must have been waiting in the system, preparing for exactly this opportunity. Piccolo walked to the observation bay's viewport, staring out at the stars. His enhanced vision picked up the distant flashes of ships dropping out of hyperspace, dozens of angular vessels bristling with weapons. The largest ship, nearly 2 kilometers long, gleamed blood-red under Felucia's sun, its hull adorned with markings that even he could recognize as symbols of authority. So the old man wants to meet me personally, Piccolo said, his reflection in the viewport showing no fear. Fine. Let's see what this Sith Lord is really made of. Isla stepped beside him, her blue skin pale with worry. Piccolo, you don't understand. Dooku won't just attack. He'll try to turn you, corrupt you to the dark side. He's a master manipulator who's converted dozens of Jedi to his cause through... I've already been corrupted, Piccolo interrupted quietly. His reflection in the viewport seemed to darken with memory. I was born as the reincarnation of a demon king, created to be pure evil. I spent years as a villain, terrorizing innocents and seeking power for its own sake. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. But I chose to change. I chose to protect instead of destroy. So whatever dark side this Dooku wields, I've already faced worse darkness, the kind that comes from within. The medical frigate shuddered as Separatist ships began their attack run, turbo laser fire streaking through the void. On the bridge, Admiral Euleran barked orders to his crew, coordinating defensive positions with the 3 Venator-class star destroyers that comprised the Republic fleet in this sector. But everyone knew the truth. They were outnumbered 5-1, and Count Dooku's flagship alone outgunned their entire formation. The only question was whether Piccolo represented salvation or simply another complication in a war that had already claimed countless lives. In the heart of the Providence-class destroyer Invisible Hand, Count Dooku stood on the bridge with his hands clasped behind his back. The image of aristocratic calm. His white hair and beard gave him the appearance of a distinguished elder statesman, but his eyes, cold and calculating, revealed the predator beneath the civilized veneer. Open a communication channel to the Republic medical frigate, Dooku commanded, his cultured voice carrying absolute authority. Let's see if our mysterious visitor is intelligent enough to recognize opportunity when it presents itself. General Grievous stood beside him, his damaged chest plate already replaced by maintenance droids during the short hyperspace journey. And if he refuses, my lord, Dooku's smile was thin and dangerous. Then we'll demonstrate why even the Jedi Council fears the power of the dark side. The holographic transmission materialized on the bridge of the Resolute's Grace, filling the command center with Count Dooku's imposing presence. The former Jedi Master stood with his hands clasped before him, his elegant bearing at odds with the warships surrounding the Republic fleet. When he spoke, his voice carried the refined accent of Sereno's nobility, smooth as silk wrapped around steel. I am Count Dooku of Sereno, leader of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. I wish to speak with the being who arrived on Felucia through unconventional means. I believe we have much to discuss. Admiral Yularin's jaw clenched. This is a Republic vessel, Dooku. Whatever game you're playing, no game, Admiral. Dooku's expression remained pleasant, almost grandfatherly. Merely an opportunity for dialogue. The individual I seek is not a Republic citizen, not bound by your laws or allegiances. Surely he deserves a chance to hear all perspectives before choosing sides in a conflict he doesn't understand. Piccolo stepped onto the bridge before anyone could stop him, his weighted cape billowing as he moved past startled clone troopers. Ayla reached out to intercept him, but Plo Koon's hand on her shoulder held her back. The Keldor Jedi Master sensed something important unfolding, a moment that couldn't be forced or controlled. The Namekian stood before the holographic projection, his 7-foot frame meeting Dooku's transmitted image at eye level. For several seconds they studied each other in silence. The ancient Sith Lord and the warrior from beyond the stars. You're the one who sent the cyborg, Piccolo said flatly, the one who orders machines to capture living beings for study. A crude assessment, but not entirely inaccurate. Dooku's smile didn't waver. I am a seeker of knowledge, particularly regarding power that transcends conventional understanding. Your display on Felucia was enlightening. Energy projection without midi-chlorian manipulation, physical enhancement beyond biological norms, regeneration that defies medical science. Fascinating. I'm not interested in being your science experiment. Of course not. Dooku spread his hands in a gesture of openness. I'm offering something far more valuable, understanding. You're trapped in a galaxy you don't comprehend, surrounded by factions whose true motives remain hidden from you. The Republic presents itself as democratic peacekeepers, but they've enslaved millions of sentient beings. He gestured toward the clone troopers manning the bridge stations. These soldiers were grown in tubes, designed to be obedient, programmed to die without question. Is that the side you wish to support? Piccolo's antennae twitched. He glanced at Commander Bly, whose posture stiffened beneath his helmet. The clone's heart rate elevated. Anger, shame, or both. The Namekian had wondered about these identical soldiers, their uniformity too perfect to be natural. Clones, manufactured warriors bred for war. He's telling the truth, Piccolo said to Ayla, his voice carrying no judgment, only observation. About the clones. Ayla's leku darkened with conflicted emotion. It's complicated. The clone army was created to defend the Republic against the Separatist threat. They're soldiers, yes, but they're also individuals with personalities, hopes, dreams. Created without consent, Piccolo interrupted. Born into servitude. I've seen this before. Beings manufactured as weapons, denied the choice of their own existence. His expression hardened with memory. Cell, the bio-android created solely for destruction. The androids programmed with singular murderous purpose. It's wrong, regardless of justification. Dooku's holographic smile widened. At least someone in this galaxy still possesses moral clarity. Tell me, warrior from Earth, what would you do if you discovered the entire war you're being drawn into was orchestrated by manipulators on both sides? That Republic and Separatist alike danced to strings pulled by hidden masters? My lord, General Grievous's voice crackled through the transmission. The fleet is in position. Shall I commence bombardment? Not yet, General. I believe our guest needs time to process these revelations. Dooku's eyes fixed on Piccolo with predatory intensity. I'm offering you sanctuary aboard my flagship. No experiments, no captivity, merely conversation between warriors who recognize the galaxy's true nature. The Jedi will tell you I'm a monster, a fallen guardian corrupted by dark powers. But consider, I was once a Jedi Master, trained by Yoda himself. I left their order when I recognized their hypocrisy, their willingness to serve politicians rather than the Force itself. Plo Koon stepped forward, his breathing mask hissing. Piccolo, don't listen to him. Dooku left the Jedi Order because he embraced the dark side. Power through passion, strength through domination, victory through any means necessary. He's killed countless innocents in pursuit of his vision. As have the Jedi, Dooku countered smoothly. How many civilians died in Republic bombardments? How many worlds burned because the Council decided they were strategic necessities? At least I acknowledge the violence inherent in my philosophy. The Jedi hide behind rhetoric of peace while wielding armies. Piccolo's fists clenched. Both sides were throwing accusations, each claiming moral superiority while admitting to atrocities. It reminded him too much of Earth's history, nations justifying warfare through lofty ideals while people suffered and died. You want me to visit your ship, Piccolo said to Dooku, to hear your full perspective. I want you to understand the galaxy before committing to either side. Dooku's projection gestured to encompass the stars beyond the bridge. You possess power that exists outside the Force's framework, which makes you unique, valuable, and dangerous to those who seek to control through Force manipulation. The Jedi will fear you eventually. The Republic will attempt to weaponize you. I offer something different. Freedom to make your own choices, access to knowledge that might help you return home, and allies who respect strength rather than fear it. And if I refuse, Dooku's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Then this conversation ends. My fleet withdraws, and we meet again as enemies. I'd prefer to avoid that outcome, but I won't force your hand. Unlike the Jedi Council, I believe power should be earned through respect, not coerced through circumstance. Admiral Yularin's voice cut through the tension. He's stalling. Our sensors show separatist boarding craft launching. He's planning to assault the ship regardless of negotiations. Dooku sighed, the sound of disappointed teacher rather than military commander. General Grievous can be overzealous. Very well, since time has become a factor, let me make this simple. He raised one hand, palm up, and blue lightning suddenly crackled across his fingers. The infamous Force lightning that had killed so many Jedi. This is the power the Jedi call dark and evil. It's simply energy, channeled through emotion rather than serene detachment. I could teach you to channel your Kai through similar pathways, to enhance your abilities beyond what your universe's limitations allow. Piccolo watched the lightning dance across Dooku's fingers, energy projection through emotional focus. Not so different from how Kai worked. Warriors like Vegeta channeled rage into power, while others like Goku drew strength from joy and determination. The Jedi claimed emotional control through suppression, but this Sith embraced emotion as fuel. Neither approach was inherently evil. Both were tools. The wielder's intent determined morality, not the technique itself. You're offering to train me, Piccolo said slowly, to help me adapt my powers to this galaxy's rules. Among other things, Dooku deactivated the lightning, his expression returning to grandfatherly warmth. I'm offering you what the Jedi cannot. Acknowledgement that strength comes in many forms, that power without the Force is still power, that warriors deserve respect regardless of their origin. Isla stepped beside Piccolo, her voice urgent and low. He's manipulating you. Every word is calculated to exploit your uncertainty, your isolation. This is what Dooku does. He finds vulnerabilities and twists them. He turned dozens of Jedi to his cause through exactly these tactics. Is he wrong about the clones? Piccolo asked bluntly. About the Republic using manufactured soldiers? The silence on the bridge was answer enough. Is he wrong about the Jedi serving as generals in a war that contradicts their peacekeeping mission? Plo Koon's masked face tilted downward. The situation is more complex than simple right and wrong. Everything's complex when you're trying to justify compromise, Piccolo said, his tone sharp enough to cut Durasteel. He'd heard similar arguments from King Kai, from Kami, from every authority figure who preached ideals while accepting practical evils. I need time to think. I need to understand this galaxy without someone trying to recruit me every 5 minutes. The ship shuddered violently as Separatist boarding craft magnetically clamped to the hull. Distant explosions echoed through the corridors as battle droids began cutting through airlock doors. Time, unfortunately, is a luxury we've exhausted, Dooku said, his holographic form flickering as jamming signals interfered with the transmission. My forces are boarding your vessel. You have three options: warrior from Earth, join me voluntarily and leave this ship unharmed, resist and watch these Republic soldiers die defending you, or attempt escape on your own. Choose quickly. Grievous has orders to terminate all resistance. Piccolo's energy flared instinctively, golden aura crackling around his body as his ki responded to combat readiness. The bridge's environmental controls went haywire, temperature spiking and lights flickering from electromagnetic interference. Commander Bly and his men raised their blasters, forming a defensive perimeter around the Jedi Masters. Through their helmets' internal displays, they watched life signs of fellow clones winking out as Separatist forces pushed deeper into the ship. We can fight our way to the escape pods, Kit Fisto suggested, his lightsaber already in hand. Regroup with the Venator-class destroyers and establish a defensive position. Negative, Admiral Yularen said from his command station, his face illuminated by tactical displays showing catastrophic damage reports. They've targeted our hangar bays and pod launchers specifically. This assault was planned to prevent exactly that escape route. Piccolo's analytical mind processed the situation with cold efficiency. The Republic forces were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and out of options. If he stayed, they'd die defending him. If he fled, they'd die anyway as Dooku's fleet destroyed the crippled medical frigate. If he surrendered to Dooku, there's a fourth option, Piccolo said quietly. He raised two fingers to his forehead, a gesture that meant nothing in this universe but was deeply ingrained from years of training with Goku. Instant transmission required sensing key signatures across vast distances, but that technique relied on Earth's energy framework, and he hadn't sensed any familiar key signatures since arriving in this galaxy. But he'd been studying the Force for hours now, learning how it flowed between living beings. If he could adapt his sensory techniques to detect these Force signatures instead of Kai, Piccolo's consciousness expanded outward, reaching through the static interference between his native energy sense and the Force's alien framework. He felt the thousands of clone troopers aboard the medical frigate, their life forces identical yet subtly unique. He felt the Jedi, their Force presences like bright flames against the void. And beyond the ship, scattered across the Republic fleet, he sensed hundreds more. And on that massive red warship, he felt something else. A dark star of concentrated power, cold and patient and utterly confident. Count Dooku, waiting to see which choice the Namekian would make. Can you teleport? Piccolo asked Ayla suddenly. Move objects or people instantly through space using your Force. She blinked in surprise. Teleportation? No, that's not. The Force doesn't work that way. We can enhance speed, move objects, even sometimes shield against attacks, but instant displacement across distance is impossible. For you, maybe. Piccolo's antennae twitched as he locked onto Dooku's Force signature. I'm going to accept his invitation, but not the way he expects. Before anyone could protest, Piccolo exploded forward, moving so fast he left after images. He crashed through the bridge's viewport, shattering the reinforced transparasteel like glass. The vacuum of space pulled at him instantly, but he was already generating a Kai barrier, the same technique that let him survive in Earth's upper atmosphere and brief exposure to space during battles with Frieza's forces. Alarms shrieked across the bridge as emergency bulkheads slammed down, sealing the breach. Ayla rushed to the shattered viewport, watching in disbelief as Piccolo accelerated toward the Separatist flagship, using flight techniques that should be impossible without propulsion. He's insane, Luminara whispered. No one can survive open space without protective gear. He's not using the Force, Plo Koon observed, his connection to the cosmic energy revealing nothing around Piccolo's trajectory. That's his own power sustaining him? Remarkable. On the invisible hand, Count Dooku felt the disturbance seconds before it arrived. Something was approaching his flagship at incredible velocity, shrugging off point defense turbolaser fire like rain. His connection to the dark side screamed warning, and he ignited his curved lightsaber just as Piccolo crashed through the bridge's armored hull like a meteor. The impact sent droids flying, crushed control stations, and left a smoking crater where the Namekian landed. Grievous stumbled backward, his forearms spreading wide, four lightsabers igniting simultaneously. Piccolo stood slowly, his weighted cape settling as his Kai barrier dissipated. His clothes were scorched from atmospheric friction and turbo-laser impacts, but his body showed no damage. Around him, shocked separatist officers froze in place, unsure whether to attack or flee. The Namekian's eyes fixed on Count Dooku, golden energy crackling around his clenched fists. "You wanted to talk," Piccolo said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "So let's talk. But if you try to attack that medical frigate, if even one more of those clones dies because of your manipulation, I'll show you what real power looks like. Force or no force." Dooku stared at the being before him, his centuries of experience and dark-side mastery suddenly feeling inadequate. This warrior had just survived hard vacuum, shrugged off capital ship weapons, and torn through military-grade hull plating with his bare hands, and he was still holding back. For the first time in decades, Count Dooku felt something he'd almost forgotten. Fear. The bridge of the invisible hand fell into stunned silence. Battle droids stood frozen, their processors struggling to classify the threat, standing in a crater of torn durasteel. General Grievous's yellow eyes narrowed, calculating attack vectors while his damaged chest plate sparked with each mechanical breath. And Count Dooku, ancient Sith Lord, master duelist, orchestrator of galactic war, found himself genuinely uncertain for the first time in years. Piccolo's energy stabilized, the golden aura around his fists fading to a barely visible shimmer. His antennae twitched as he sensed the room's occupants. Dozens of droids, the cyborg general radiating mechanical hostility, and the old man whose dark presence felt like cold water flowing through an underground river. Powerful, controlled, patient. "Remarkable," Dooku said finally, his aristocratic composure returning like armor. He deactivated his lightsaber with a sharp hiss, the curved hilt returning to his belt. "You've just demonstrated exactly why the Jedi fear you. Power that exists outside their framework of control, strength that cannot be predicted or manipulated through the Force. Tell me, how many beings in your universe can survive hard vacuum?" "Enough." Piccolo's response was curt. He had no intention of revealing Earth's defensive capabilities to a potential enemy. "You wanted conversation. I'm here. Call off your attack on the medical frigate." Dooku smiled, the expression carrying genuine amusement rather than manipulation. "You crashed through my flagship's hull, destroyed half my bridge, and now issue demands? Most beings would beg for mercy in your position. Most beings couldn't reduce this entire ship to scrap metal if they wanted to." Piccolo's tone remained flat, stating fact rather than threat. "I said I'm willing to talk. That doesn't mean I'm willing to watch people die while you posture." The Sith Lord studied Piccolo for several heartbeats, his dark side senses probing for weakness, for leverage, for the emotional vulnerabilities that all beings possessed. He found nothing. Not the blank void of droids, not the chaotic swirl of Force sensitives, but something else entirely, a self-contained presence that existed in its own reality, untouchable by external manipulation. "General Grievous," Dooku said smoothly, never breaking eye contact with Piccolo. "Cease boarding operations. Hold position, but do not disengage. Inform the fleet that negotiations are ongoing." Grievous's mechanical growl expressed his displeasure, but he moved to a still functional comm station. "All units, suspend assault, maintain siege positions, await further orders." Piccolo felt the shift immediately. The distant sounds of combat from the Republic medical frigate fading, the pressure of imminent violence easing slightly. Not eliminated, just postponed. He'd bought time, nothing more. "Satisfied?" Dooku asked. "For now." Piccolo crossed his arms, his weighted cape settling around his shoulders. "You said you wanted me to understand the galaxy, so explain. Why are you really fighting this war? Don't give me the political propaganda. I want the truth." Dooku's expression shifted, layers of diplomatic facade falling away to reveal something closer to genuine philosophy. He gestured toward the bridge's viewport where Felucia's purple atmosphere swirled below, the medical frigate visible as a small white shape surrounded by separatist warships. The Galactic Republic has existed for over 25,000 years, Dooku began, his cultured voice taking on a lecturer's cadence. For millennia, it maintained peace and prosperity through the Jedi Order's guidance. But the Republic became corrupt. Bureaucrats more interested in wealth than governance. Senators bought by corporate interests. Entire species exploited for profit, while the core worlds grew fat and complacent. And your solution was war? Piccolo's tone carried skepticism earned from watching too many tyrants justify atrocity through noble ideals. My solution was separation. Dooku turned from the viewport, his hands clasped behind his back. The Outer Rim worlds wanted independence from Republic exploitation. The Corporate Alliance, Trade Federation, Commerce Guild, they wanted freedom from Republic taxation and regulation. I united these factions into the Confederacy of Independent Systems, a legitimate political movement. Led by a Sith Lord using dark side powers, Piccolo's eyes narrowed. The Jedi said you orchestrated this war specifically to weaken the Republic and the Jedi Order. The Jedi say many things. Dooku's smile turned bitter. They claim to serve peace while leading clone armies into battle. They preach emotional detachment while making life and death decisions affecting billions. Tell me, warrior from Earth, in your universe, do the righteous always speak truth? Piccolo thought of the Supreme Kai, so certain in his divine authority, yet powerless against Majin Buu. He thought of the Zed fighters' conflicts with governments who feared their power. He thought of his own father, King Piccolo, who'd believed his tyranny was the natural order of strong, ruling weak. No, Piccolo admitted. The powerful lie to themselves most of all, but that doesn't make you honest either. Dooku laughed, the sound surprisingly genuine. At least you're not naive. Yes, I'm a Sith Lord. Yes, I draw power from emotions the Jedi fear, anger, passion, ambition. But unlike my master, I don't seek galactic domination for its own sake. I seek to destroy a corrupt system and rebuild something better. Your master, Piccolo's antennae twitched. The Jedi mentioned another Sith, Darth Sidious, the one whose identity remains hidden. A flash of something crossed Dooku's expression, too quick to identify fully, but Piccolo's combat instincts caught it. Frustration, resentment, fear. Darth Sidious is complicated, Dooku said carefully, his aristocratic mask fully in place now. All Sith apprenticeships are. The rule of two demands one master, one apprentice. Constant competition, constant evolution through conflict. My master has his own vision for the galaxy's future. A vision you don't share. Piccolo stated it as fact, not question. He'd spent enough time around power-hungry beings to recognize the patterns. Dooku was powerful, but he served someone even stronger, and he resented it. The Sith Lord's eyes hardened. You're perceptive, dangerous and perceptive, a potent combination. He moved toward an intact section of the bridge, gesturing for Piccolo to follow. Come, if we're going to have this conversation properly, we should do so somewhere less damaged. Piccolo didn't move. Answer the question first. What does Darth Sidious want? What all Sith eventually want? Absolute power. Dooku's honesty was almost refreshing in its bluntness. But his methods are subtler than traditional conquest. He doesn't simply want to rule the galaxy. He wants to reshape it entirely, to tear down the Jedi Order and rebuild civilization according to Sith philosophy. The Clone Wars are merely the mechanism through which he'll achieve this transformation. And you're helping him, Piccolo's fist clenched, while thousands die in a war orchestrated for one being's ambition. Yes, no apology, no justification, just acknowledgement. Because the alternative is worse. The Republic's corruption is terminal. The Jedi Order has become complicit in maintaining broken systems. Sometimes civilizations need to burn before they can rebuild stronger. Your universe must have similar cycles: growth, decay, destruction, rebirth. Piccolo thought of Namek's destruction, of Earth's multiple near-apocalypses, of entire civilizations erased by beings like Frieza and Majin Buu. Dooku wasn't entirely wrong. Sometimes old orders had to fall before new ones could rise. But the cost, the difference, Piccolo said quietly, is that in my universe, we fight to protect the innocent caught in those cycles. We don't engineer catastrophes and pretend it's philosophy. Noble sentiment. Dooku's expression softened slightly, something almost resembling respect showing through. But tell me honestly, how many innocents died while you and your fellow warriors battled your cosmic threats? How many civilizations were collateral damage to conflicts between powers beyond their comprehension? The question hit harder than any physical attack. Piccolo remembered the people vaporized when Nappa destroyed East City, the Namekians killed during Frieza's occupation of their homeworld, the millions who died when Cell broadcast his tournament to Earth. He'd fought to protect people, yes, but protection and success weren't always the same thing. I see the truth in your eyes, Dooku observed. You understand that power, no matter how well-intentioned, leaves destruction in its wake. The Jedi refuse to acknowledge this reality. They cling to their code about protecting life while simultaneously wielding armies. At least I'm honest about the violence I enable. A proximity alarm suddenly blared across the damaged bridge. General Grievous snarled from his position at the tactical display. Republic reinforcements dropping out of hyperspace. 3 additional Venator-class destroyers accompanied by... Blast it, that's Master Windu's flagship. Dooku's expression barely changed, but Piccolo felt the dark side energy around him intensify. Anticipation mixed with genuine wariness. Mace Windu, the Jedi Order's champion, their greatest warrior. This complicates matters. Should I prepare for engagement, my lord? Grievous's 4 hands moved toward his lightsaber collection. No. Dooku raised a hand, forestalling the cyborg's aggression. Master Windu's arrival changes the tactical landscape. He won't negotiate, won't hesitate, won't show the philosophical flexibility that Master Sakura and Kun possess. He turned back to Piccolo, which means you need to make a choice now, warrior from Earth. Stay aboard my ship as my guest, and the Jedi will brand you as separatist collaborator. Return to the Republic fleet, and you'll become their weapon, a living super weapon they'll deploy wherever the war burns hottest. Or I leave entirely, Piccolo countered, find my own path in this galaxy without allying with either side. Theoretically possible, Dooku admitted, but impractical. You have no resources, no knowledge of galactic navigation, no understanding of the political landscape. Neutrality is an illusion. Eventually, both sides will force you to choose simply by existing in their space. Better to ally with those who respect your independence than those who will try to control it. Piccolo's mind raced through scenarios, calculating outcomes with the same analytical precision he'd developed through decades of strategic combat. Dooku was manipulative but not entirely dishonest. His assessment of the tactical situation matched what Piccolo had observed. The Jedi did fear his power. The Republic would want to weaponize him, and this mysterious Darth Sidious represented a hidden threat that made the entire war feel like theater. But Dooku served that same Sidious, which meant every word, every seemingly honest revelation might be part of a larger manipulation Piccolo couldn't yet perceive. I need time, Piccolo said finally. Time to understand this galaxy without constant recruitment pressure. Time to adapt my abilities to local conditions. Time to find a way home. Time is the one resource I can't guarantee. Dooku gestured toward the tactical display showing Republic reinforcements forming up for assault. In approximately 4 minutes, Mace Windu will demand your immediate return to Republic custody. If you refuse, he'll attempt to take you by force. He's powerful enough to believe he can succeed. If I refuse, we'll have a battle that will cost thousands of lives on both sides. Then maybe it's time I demonstrate something that will make both sides reconsider treating me like a prize to be won. Piccolo's energy began rising again, more controlled this time but no less potent. The bridge's remaining functional systems sparked and flickered from electromagnetic interference. Dooku felt it through the dark side. Power building like pressure behind a dam, controlled but ready to unleash devastation if necessary. This being wasn't bluffing. He genuinely possessed the capacity to annihilate everything in the immediate vicinity if pushed hard enough. What exactly are you proposing? The Sith Lord asked carefully. A demonstration. Piccolo moved toward the damaged section of hull he'd torn through on arrival. I'm going to that Republic flagship. I'm going to talk to this Mace Windu. And I'm going to make it very clear that I'm not anyone's weapon or recruitment prize. After that, both sides can decide if continuing to pursue me is worth the cost. And if Windu attacks you? Piccolo's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held the cold certainty of a warrior who'd survived gods and monsters. Then he'll learn the same lesson the cyborg did, that there are powers in the universe the Force can't predict or control. Before Dooku could respond, Piccolo launched himself through the hull breach, his Ki barrier flaring to life as vacuum surrounded him. He accelerated toward the distant Republic flagship, a streak of green against the black void, leaving the Sith Lord alone with his thoughts. General Grievous stepped beside his master, mechanical fingers clenching and unclenching. Shall I order the fleet to fire on him? No. Dooku's eyes tracked Piccolo's trajectory with an expression somewhere between admiration and calculation. Let him go. Let him face Mace Windu. Regardless of who prevails, we'll learn valuable information about his capabilities and psychology. And if he returns to the Republic? Dooku smiled, though it carried no warmth. Then we'll ensure his stay with them is educational. Sometimes the best way to recruit a warrior isn't through offers of alliance, but by showing him the true nature of those he defends. In the meditation chambers of his Coruscant office, Darth Sidious felt the disturbance ripple through the Force, a blind spot approaching one of his most powerful Jedi assets. His wizened face contorted with displeasure, hidden beneath the mask of Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. The Namekian was proving more disruptive than anticipated. Not dangerous, not yet, but unpredictable in ways that threatened decades of carefully orchestrated plans. Perhaps, Sidious murmured to the empty chamber, it's time to accelerate certain contingencies before this outsider upsets the delicate balance I've so carefully maintained. On the bridge of the Venator-class destroyer Endurance, Jedi Master Mace Windu stood with his arms crossed, his dark face set in grim determination. His connection to the Force had detected the anomaly the moment he'd entered the system, a void where power should be, a presence that existed outside the cosmic order he'd spent his life understanding. Master Windu, his clone commander reported, unidentified hostile approaching from the Separatist flagship. Trajectory suggests direct approach to our position. Not hostile, Windu corrected quietly, though his hand moved to his lightsaber hilt. Just unknown, and sometimes that's more dangerous. He watched through the viewport as Piccolo materialized from the void, slowing his velocity through methods that made no sense according to Republic physics. The Namekian warrior landed on the Endurance's hull, his weighted cape somehow still billowing in the vacuum of space. Mace Windu had faced Sith Lords and Darkside monsters. He'd stared down armies and survived battles that killed dozens of Jedi. But as Piccolo ripped through the hull plating to enter the hangar bay below, Windu felt something he rarely experienced: genuine uncertainty about whether his power would be enough for what was coming. The hangar bay of the Endurance erupted into chaos as Piccolo tore through the hull plating from above. Atmosphere vented briefly before emergency shields activated, creating a shimmering blue barrier that sealed the breach. Clone troopers scrambled for defensive positions, their blasters trained on the smoking hole where reinforced durasteel had been peeled back like thin foil. Piccolo dropped through the opening, landing in a three-point stance that cracked the hangar deck beneath his feet. He straightened slowly, his weighted cape settling as golden energy dissipated from around his body. Around him, dozens of LAAT gunships and starfighters sat in neat rows, their crews frozen in place, unsure whether to attack or await orders. "Hold your fire!" The command came from the hangar entrance, where Mace Windu strode forward with the absolute confidence of a Jedi Master who'd never lost a duel. His purple lightsaber remained clipped to his belt, but his hand rested near it with practiced readiness. Behind him, two more Jedi followed, a female Mirialan with intricate facial tattoos and a male Zabrak whose horned head marked him as Savage Oppress's cousin species. Piccolo's antennae twitched, sensing the energy signatures approaching. The bald, dark-skinned man radiated power unlike the other Jedi he'd encountered, controlled, focused, like a blade sharpened to molecular precision. This was the warrior Dooku had warned about, the Jedi Order's champion. "I am Jedi Master Mace Windu," the man said, his deep voice carrying absolute authority. "You've caused significant disruption to Republic operations, destroyed military property, and consorted with separatist leadership. Explain yourself." "I don't answer to the Republic," Piccolo replied flatly. "I came here to make something clear to all of you. Jedi, Sith, Republic, Separatist, doesn't matter. I'm not a weapon you can recruit. I'm not a threat you can eliminate. I'm a warrior trying to get home, and I won't be used in your war." Windu's expression remained neutral, but Piccolo felt the energy around him intensify. Not hostile yet, but preparing. The Jedi Master was sizing him up, calculating threat levels through whatever framework his power system used. "You emerged from Count Dooku's flagship unharmed," Windu observed. "Either you're remarkably fortunate, or you've made some kind of arrangement with the enemy. Given Dooku's nature, I suspect the latter. I crashed through his ship, destroyed half his bridge, and forced him to call off his assault on your medical frigate." Piccolo's tone carried the weariness of someone tired of explaining themselves. "That's not an arrangement. That's a demonstration of what happens when people try to force my hand." The female Mirialan Jedi, Master Luminara had accompanied Windu from Coruscant, stepped forward. "We have reports that you possess abilities outside the Force, energy projection, enhanced physical capabilities, regeneration beyond medical possibility. How?" "Different universe, different rules." Piccolo crossed his arms. "Where I come from, warriors learn to channel Kai, life energy generated from within. It's not your force, doesn't follow your principles, and can't be manipulated through your techniques, which seems to make everyone nervous." "Power without balance is inherently dangerous," Windu said, his philosophical conviction absolute. "The Force maintains equilibrium, light and dark, creation and destruction, life and death. Power that exists outside this framework threatens the natural order." Piccolo's eyes narrowed. "I've heard this speech before. Different words, same arrogance. You're not angry that I'm powerful. You're angry that you can't control or predict my power. Just like Dooku said." The hangar fell silent. Clone troopers exchanged glances behind their helmets, shocked that anyone would speak to Mace Windu with such direct challenge. The Jedi Master's jaw tightened, his hand moving fractionally closer to his lightsaber. "Dooku is a manipulator and a liar," Windu said coldly. "Everything he told you was designed to turn you against the Republic and the Jedi Order. That's what Sith do. They find vulnerabilities and exploit them. He told me the clone army was manufactured without consent, bred specifically for warfare. Was he lying about that?" Windu's hesitation was answer enough. "He told me the Jedi became generals in a war that contradicts their peacekeeping philosophy. Was that a lie too?" "The situation is complex." "It's not complex," Piccolo interrupted, his voice sharp. "You took soldiers bred in tubes, gave them no choice in their existence, and sent them to die in a war you don't fully understand. In my universe, we call that slavery. Doesn't matter how noble your intentions are." The Zabrak Jedi's hand moved to his lightsaber hilt, anger flashing across his tattooed face. "You dare lecture us about morality? You who emerged from a Sith warship, who destroyed Republic property, who threatens our warriors." "Master Kolar," Windu's voice cut through the outburst like a blade. "Stand down." He turned his full attention back to Piccolo, and the Namekian felt the pressure of that focus like physical weight. "You're right. The clone army represents a moral compromise we were forced to make when the separatist crisis emerged. We didn't create them, but we use them because the alternative is watching the Republic fall to tyranny. Sometimes, protecting the greater good requires difficult choices." "The greater good!" Piccolo's expression hardened with memories of every tyrant who'd used those exact words. King Piccolo said he was creating order. Frieza claimed he was bringing peace to the universe through strength. Cell believed he was the next stage of evolution, eliminating the weak for the greater good. He uncrossed his arms, energy crackling around his fists. "I've fought too many monsters who justified atrocity through philosophy to be impressed by yours." Windu's lightsaber ignited with a snap hiss, the purple blade casting violet shadows across the hangar. "I can sense your power, even if I can't touch it with the Force. You could destroy this ship if you wanted to. perhaps even kill everyone aboard. But doing so would make you the very monster you claim to oppose. I'm not threatening anyone, Piccolo said, though his own energy continued building. I'm establishing boundaries. You can't recruit me. You can't control me. You can't force me into your war. Try any of those things and yes, I'll defend myself. And your force powers won't be enough to stop me. The other Jedi ignited their lightsabers, Luminara's green blade and Kalar's blue creating a triangle of plasma light. Clone troopers raised their blasters, fingers on triggers, awaiting the order that would turn the hangar into a battlefield. For 3 heartbeats, violence hung suspended, inevitable, terrible, and utterly wasteful. Then a new voice cut through the tension. Master Windu, stand down. Everyone turned to see Jedi Master Yoda entering the hangar, his small form supported by a Geimer stick, but radiating authority that made even Windu step back. The ancient Jedi Grand Master moved with slow deliberation, his ears twitching as he studied Piccolo, with eyes that had witnessed 9 centuries of galactic history. From far beyond our galaxy, this one comes, Yoda said, his backwards syntax somehow making his words more profound. Judge him by our standards, we cannot. Understand him through the Force, we do not. Yet sense his intentions, I still may. He stopped 10 feet from Piccolo, tilting his head upward to meet the Namekian's gaze. Home you wish to return, harm innocence you do not desire. Truth these feelings are? Piccolo stared at the small green being, shocked to encounter someone whose skin tone and general appearance bore superficial resemblance to Namekian's. But the energy signature was completely different. This Yoda was deeply integrated with the Force, his presence like ancient roots running through galactic bedrock. Yes, Piccolo said simply. I want to go home. I want to return to Earth and resume protecting my people. I don't want to be part of your war. Yet part of it you already are. Yoda's ears drooped slightly. Arrive in this galaxy you did not ask. Into conflict you were thrust. But choices you have still made. Save Republic soldiers on Felucia, you chose. Spare General Grievous, when kill him you could have. Demonstrate restraint, when unleashed destruction was possible. Those weren't moral choices, Piccolo said, though he recognized the trap in his own words. They were practical decisions. Yoda's expression might have been a smile. And practice morality through consistent action? What is that? Judge beings not by stated philosophy, the Force teaches. Judge them by deeds in moments of power. Mace Windu deactivated his lightsaber, though his expression showed deep reluctance. Master Yoda, this being possesses capabilities we can't measure or counter. Allowing him to operate independently could what, Master Windu? Yoda's voice carried gentle reproach. Disrupt the Council's plans? Challenge Jedi certainty? Remind us that vast, the universe is, and limited, our understanding? The ancient master turned back to Piccolo. A proposal I have. Neither prisoner nor soldier you would be. Instead, observer. Travel with Jedi, learn our ways, teach us yours. Understanding through experience, truth through honest dialogue. You want me to join your forces? Piccolo's tone carried suspicion. Want you to see the galaxy through eyes not clouded by Dooku's half-truths, Yoda corrected. The Sith Lord, truth with lies he mixes. Yes, manufactured the clone soldiers were. Yes, compromised the Jedi have become. But understand the full picture, you do not. Orchestrated by Sith machinations, this entire war is. Billions suffer while hidden masters manipulate. Stop this our goal is. How, we know not yet. But help from unexpected sources, the Force provides. Piccolo studied the ancient Jedi, searching for deception and finding only weariness, bone-deep exhaustion hidden beneath wisdom and authority. This being had lived centuries, accumulated vast knowledge and power, yet stood before him admitting uncertainty and seeking help. It reminded Piccolo uncomfortably of Kami in the final days before fusion. Ancient, powerful, but aware that his time was ending, and desperate to ensure something better survived. I won't take orders, Piccolo said finally. I won't pretend to be a Jedi or follow your code. I'll observe, maybe assist if situations align with my principles, but I remain independent. Acceptable, these terms are. Yoda nodded slowly, but request one thing I do. When meet Count Dooku again, and meet him you will, remember, powerful in the Force he is, but not the true enemy. A puppet he is. Darth Sidious, the real threat. Find him, expose him, defeat him. End this war, these actions will. You don't know who he is, Piccolo realized. This Sidious has hidden his identity even from you. Hidden in shadows for years he has been. But sense his influence. I do. In the Senate, in military decisions, in the Chancellor's office itself, corruption spreads like poison. Close to power, Sidious must be, perhaps within the Republic's highest levels. The implication sent ripples through everyone present. If the Sith Lord orchestrating the war operated within the Republic government itself, then everything, every battle, every casualty, every strategic decision, might be playing into his hands. Piccolo's analytical mind processed this new information with cold efficiency. Two Sith Lords, one visible operating through the Separatists, one hidden manipulating the Republic. Both sides of the war controlled by the same faction, creating conflict that served only their mysterious agenda. It was elegant in its cruelty, brilliant in its execution, and utterly monstrous in its disregard for the beings caught between. If I help you find this Sidious, Piccolo said slowly, it's not for your Republic or your Jedi Order. It's because I've faced too many tyrants who manipulate from shadows. They're all the same. Different faces, different powers, same pattern, and they all need to be stopped. Your reasons matter they do not, Yoda said. Only the result important is. Stop Sidious, save millions we will. Maybe billions. Mace Windu stepped forward, his face still set in grim lines. Master Yoda, the Council should vote on this decision. Granting this much freedom to an unknown entity, already decided I have. Yoda's voice carried the absolute authority of someone who'd led the Jedi Order through centuries. Trust the Force we must. Even when through unfamiliar paths, it leads us. An alarm suddenly blared across the ship's intercom. The captain's voice crackled through the hangar speakers, urgent and strained. All hands to battle stations. Separatist fleet is repositioning. They're preparing for assault. Count Dooku is demanding the immediate return of the unidentified alien, or he'll open fire on both the medical frigate and our position. Piccolo's fist clenched. He's trying to force the situation, make me choose sides through violence. Classic Sith manipulation, Windu said, his lightsaber back in his hand. Create crisis, force rush decisions, exploit the chaos. Then let me handle this. Piccolo moved toward the hangar's atmospheric shield, ready to launch back into space. I'll make it clear to Dooku that using innocent people as leverage is a mistake. Wait. Yoda's small hand caught Piccolo's cape with surprising strength. Rush into conflict you must not. Think, Dooku, does you will act with anger, expects you to demonstrate power, to threaten and intimidate. Surprise him we should. Show restraint where he expects aggression. What are you suggesting? Open communication with Dooku I will. Explain that our guest, freely chosen observation status with Jedi, not captive, not soldier, independent ally. Remove his justification for attack. Force him to either accept peaceful solution or reveal his true aggressive nature to all. Piccolo considered this. It went against every combat instinct he'd honed over decades. When threatened, strike first, strike hard, eliminate the threat before it could organize. But Yoda's approach had strategic merit. If Dooku attacked after being offered peaceful resolution, it would expose the Separatist cause as aggressive rather than defensive. Fine, Piccolo said. But if he attacks anyway, I'm ending this. No more dancing around politics while people die. Yoda's ears drooped with what might have been sadness. If that moment comes, stop you, I will not. But hope I do, that wisdom will prevail over violence. On the bridge of the invisible hand, Count Dooku received Yoda's transmission with barely concealed irritation. The ancient Jedi Master's holographic form appeared serene, hands folded over his walking stick, expression peaceful despite the fleet of warships aimed at his forces. Count Dooku, Yoda greeted him, speak of our mutual acquaintance. We must. Master Yoda. Dooku's cultured voice carried diplomatic warmth that barely masked underlying tension. I was not aware you'd arrived in this system. Surely the Council has more pressing matters than one unusual alien? Pressing enough to draw you here with 30 warships, this matter must be, Yoda observed mildly. Fear his power, do you? Or simply desire to add it to your arsenal? I desire understanding, Dooku corrected. The being represents unprecedented capabilities that could shift the balance of the war. Surely you recognize the strategic implications. Recognize them, I do. But claim ownership of him, neither of us can. Chosen to observe Jedi operations he has, freely without coercion. Challenge this you wish to? Dooku's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Yoda had outmaneuvered him beautifully, framing Piccolo's position as free choice rather than Republic capture. Attacking now would make the Separatist cause look like aggressive kidnappers rather than liberators. I see, Dooku said slowly. And if I wish to extend a similar invitation? To observe Separatist operations and judge both sides fairly? Welcome to propose such you are, Yoda replied. But his choice to make, it remains. Force him, neither side should. General Grievous leaned close to Dooku, his mechanical voice barely a whisper. This is a trap, my lord. The Jedi are trying to keep him from us through... I'm aware, General. Dooku raised a hand, silencing the cyborg. His dark side senses probed the situation, searching for advantage, for leverage, for any opening that would justify escalation, and found none. Yoda had diffused the crisis perfectly, leaving Dooku with only bad options. Attack and be branded as aggressors. Withdraw and lose the opportunity to recruit Piccolo. Continue the standoff and waste resources on a battle he couldn't justify to his Separatist allies. Very well, Dooku said finally. The Confederacy respects free choice, unlike the Republic which enslaves millions through clone conscription. Our offer remains open, should the Namekian wish to see the war from both perspectives. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to dangerous register. But know this, Master Yoda. Power like his cannot remain neutral forever. Eventually, he will choose a side, and when he does, I intend to ensure he understands which cause truly serves justice. The transmission ended, leaving Yoda alone with his thoughts in the Endurance's communication chamber. The ancient Jedi Master felt the currents of the Force swirling around this moment, possibilities branching in infinite directions, one being from beyond the stars, arriving at the war's most critical juncture. Coincidence? Or the Force's will manifesting in ways even he couldn't predict? Hope I do, Yoda murmured to himself, that guide us to truth, this stranger will. And pray I do, that strong enough to face it, we will be. In the hangar, Piccolo watched the Separatist fleet slowly withdraw through the viewport, their angular ships peeling away from attack formation. He'd been prepared for violence, had been gathering energy for a demonstration that would have shattered warships like toys. Instead, words and wisdom had achieved what force could not. Maybe, Piccolo thought grudgingly, these Jedi knew a few things worth learning after all. 3 weeks had passed since Piccolo's arrival in the Star Wars galaxy, and the Namekian warrior had spent that time embedded with the 501st Legion, the Republic's elite clone battalion led by Jedi General Anakin Skywalker and his Padawan, Ahsoka Tano. The experience had been illuminating in ways Piccolo hadn't anticipated. The Republic cruiser Resolute hung in orbit above Christophsis, preparing for another push against Separatist forces controlling the crystal planet's surface. Piccolo stood in the starboard observation deck, watching clone troopers run combat drills in the hangar below. After 3 weeks of observation, he'd learned their names, their individual quirks despite genetic uniformity, their hopes and fears and dreams. Rex, the battalion commander with distinctive blonde hair painted on his helmet. Fives and Echo, the inseparable ARC troopers who'd survived Kamino's defense. Hardcase, the heavy weapons specialist with a laugh that echoed through corridors. Jesse, with his Republic cog tattoo. Kix, the medic who treated every wounded brother like family. They were soldiers, good soldiers, but also slaves who'd never been given the choice to be anything else. You're brooding again, Ahsoka Tano's voice interrupted his thoughts. The young Togruta Padawan leaned against the observation deck railing, her blue and white striped leku swaying as she turned to face him. You've been doing that a lot lately. Want to talk about it? Piccolo's antennae twitched. Over the past weeks, he'd developed an unexpected rapport with Anakin's apprentice. Unlike many Jedi who treated him with fear or suspicion, Ahsoka approached him with genuine curiosity and startling honesty. She questioned the Jedi Code openly, admitted uncertainty about the war, and demonstrated a pragmatism that reminded him of Gohan. I've been thinking about the clones, Piccolo said, about what they represent. They're soldiers, Ahsoka replied, though her tone suggested she knew that wasn't the answer he was looking for. Good men doing their duty. They're people manufactured for one purpose, denied the freedom to choose their own paths. Piccolo turned to face her fully. How is that different from creating battle droids? Both are designed solely for warfare. Ahsoka's expression tightened, her hand moving unconsciously to her lightsaber hilt. That's not fair. The clones are alive. They're sentient. They have feelings and personalities and no choice, Piccolo finished. A beautiful cage is still a cage, Ahsoka. I've watched them for 3 weeks now. Listen to their conversations. They talk about what they do after the war, as if that's an actual possibility. But what happens when the fighting stops? Do they retire to civilian lives, form families, choose new careers, or do they get decommissioned like outdated equipment? The Padawan's silence was answer enough. The Jedi use them, Piccolo continued, his voice flat but not accusatory. You care about them, genuinely. I've seen how Rex looks up to Anakin, how the men trust you with their lives. But caring about slaves doesn't make you less complicit in slavery. Then what would you have us do? Ahsoka's frustration bled through, her young voice cracking slightly. Refuse to lead them? Let the Separatists win. Watch the Republic fall because we're too principled to use an army we didn't create, but desperately need? I don't have an answer, Piccolo admitted. In my universe, I've faced similar dilemmas. Sometimes you make compromises to fight greater evils. Sometimes those compromises corrupt you slowly until you can't remember why you started fighting in the first place. Before Ahsoka could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. General Tano, Commander Piccolo, report to the bridge immediately. General Skywalker has returned from his reconnaissance mission. Piccolo raised an eyebrow at the title. Over the past weeks, the clones had started calling him Commander, despite his insistence that he held no rank. Rex had explained that soldiers needed a clear designation for someone they'd follow into combat, and the green alien lacked appropriate military gravitas. They found Anakin Skywalker on the bridge, his brown robes dusty from planetside operations, mechanical right hand gesturing at a holographic tactical display. The young Jedi Knight, barely older than Piccolo had been when he first fought Goku, radiated controlled intensity that reminded the Namekian of Vegeta's focused aggression. Piccolo, glad you're here, Anakin said, not bothering with formal greetings. We've got a situation. The Separatists have fortified the main city's shield generator facility. Standard assault would cost us 50% casualties minimum. But I've been studying your combat recordings from Felucia, and I think there's another option. Admiral Yularen, who transferred to the Resolute specifically to monitor Piccolo's integration with Republic forces, cleared his throat diplomatically. General Skywalker, need I remind you that Commander Piccolo's status is observational? He's not technically part of our command structure. I'm aware, Admiral. Anakin's tone carried the barely restrained impatience he showed toward military bureaucracy. That's why I'm asking, not ordering. He turned to Piccolo directly. You can fly without a ship, you can survive vacuum briefly, and your energy attacks can punch through military-grade shields. If you wanted to, and I'm emphasizing the if you wanted to part, you could approach the facility from orbit, bypass their anti-air defenses, and disable the shield generator before they could organize a response. You want me to assassinate their defensive capabilities, Piccolo said flatly. I want to minimize clone casualties, Anakin corrected, his blue eyes intense. Every man we lose on this assault is someone who won't go home after the war, someone whose brothers will mourn. I've led enough suicide missions to know when there's a better option. Piccolo studied the tactical display. The shield generator facility sat in the center of Christophsis' capital city, surrounded by multiple layers of defensive emplacements. A ground assault would indeed be catastrophic. Clone troopers advancing through kill zones while separatist forces held elevated positions. Even with Jedi leading the charge, the casualties would be severe. But his approach from orbit would bypass all of it. He could disable the facility's defenses, maybe even destroy the generator itself, without a single Republic soldier needing to engage. If I do this, Piccolo said slowly, I'm not doing it for the Republic. I'm doing it to save those clones' lives. Understand the difference? Crystal clear, Anakin replied, a slight smile crossing his face. For what it's worth, that's exactly the kind of reasoning the Jedi Council would lecture us both about. Attachment to individual lives over strategic objectives. The Council isn't here, Ahsoka pointed out, her own smile matching her master's. And what they don't know won't hurt them. Admiral Yularen looked between the three of them with an expression of long-suffering resignation. I'll log this operation as a strategic reconnaissance mission. If the Jedi Council inquires, they won't, Anakin interrupted. Master Yoda cleared Piccolo to operate with tactical independence. As long as we're not forcing him into Republic service, we're within the mission parameters. Rex entered the bridge, his distinctive helmet tucked under one arm. General, the men are ready for deployment. We're just waiting on the shield situation. Commander Rex, Piccolo addressed the clone directly, if I disable that generator, can your men take the facility before separatist reinforcements arrive? Rex's face showed surprise at being consulted directly rather than through the chain of command. Yes, sir. We've got dropships positioned for immediate insertion. 5 minutes from shield down to boots on the ground. Then we have a plan. Piccolo moved toward the bridge exit, then paused. But afterward, we're going to have a conversation about what happens to you and your brothers when this war ends. Because I'm tired of watching good soldiers fight for a government that treats them like property. The bridge fell silent. Rex's expression flickered through several emotions before settling on careful neutrality. The face every clone learned to wear when confronted with uncomfortable truths about their existence. Anakin's hand moved to Rex's shoulder, a gesture of solidarity that spoke volumes. One war at a time, Piccolo. First we survive, then we fix the broken system. Survival isn't enough, Piccolo replied, but it's a start. 30 minutes later, Piccolo stood in the Resolute's main hangar, preparing for orbital insertion. Clone technicians had offered to provide him with a jetpack, rebreather equipment, and thermal protection gear. He'd politely declined all of it. You sure about this, Commander? Fives asked, his ARC trooper armor decorated with blue jug eyes. Long-range sensors show multiple anti-air batteries around that facility. One lucky shot and I'll be fine. Piccolo's ki began rising, golden energy crackling around his body. Over the past 3 weeks, his adjustment to the galaxy's energy framework had completed. His powers now functioned at 95% capacity, with only minor interference from the omnipresent force. I've survived worse than turbo lasers. Still, Echo, Fives' twin, handed him a small communicator. Take this at least. It's keyed to our frequency. That way we'll know when the shield's down. Piccolo accepted the device, attaching it to his belt. The gesture, clones ensuring communication despite his alien nature, spoke to how much had changed in 3 weeks. He was no longer an unknown threat. He was part of the 501st Legion, even if temporarily, even if unofficially. General Skywalker, Admiral Yularen's voice crackled over the hangar intercom. Separatist fleet movement detected. 3 Providence-class destroyers are repositioning. Their trajectory suggests they're preparing to engage our position. Anakin's voice came back immediately. Dooku? Negative. It's Admiral Trench commanding the Separatist fleet. But Count Dooku is aboard one of the destroyers as an observer. Piccolo's antennae twitched. The Sith Lord had been remarkably quiet over the past 3 weeks, making no direct contact since their confrontation. But his spy network had undoubtedly tracked Piccolo's integration with Republic forces. This sudden fleet movement wasn't coincidence. It was calculated pressure. He's trying to force another choice, Piccolo said. Make me demonstrate power for the Republic. Lock me into visible alliance. Then surprise him, Anakin suggested over the comm. Complete the mission without unnecessary destruction. Disable the generator efficiently, surgically. Show that you're not anyone's weapon of mass destruction. Tactical restraint, Ahsoka added. Master Yoda would call it wisdom. Piccolo considered this. His instinct was overwhelming force. Destroy the facility completely, eliminate any possibility of it being repaired or defended. But that approach played into Dooku's narrative, demonstrated exactly the kind of destructive potential that made both sides want to control or eliminate him. Fine, Piccolo said. Surgical strike. Disable. Don't destroy. The hangar's atmospheric shield shimmered blue as it prepared to allow his departure. Clone pilots in nearby LA-AT gunships gave him thumbs-up gestures, solidarity from professional soldiers recognizing another warrior. Piccolo launched himself through the shield, his Ki barrier flaring to life as vacuum surrounded him. The sensation still felt wrong compared to Earth's atmosphere, but manageable. He oriented himself toward Christophsis below, the crystal planet's surface glittering like a massive gemstone, and descended like a meteor wrapped in golden fire. On the bridge of the Providence-class destroyer Invincible, Count Dooku watched Piccolo's orbital descent through high-powered sensors. Beside him, Admiral Trench, a massive harch with cybernetic enhancements, replacing half his arachnid body, chittered with interest. Impressive, Trench hissed, his multiple eyes tracking Piccolo's trajectory. No spacecraft, no protection, just raw power. I see why you're so interested, Count. Interested and concerned, Dooku admitted. 3 weeks embedded with the Republic's forces, 3 weeks of Republic propaganda and Jedi manipulation. We may have lost the opportunity to recruit him. Then we eliminate him? Trench's mechanical arm moved toward his tactical display. My fleet can provide orbital bombardment on his position. No. Dooku's hand raised, forestalling the order. Killing him would require resources we can't spare, and failure would only strengthen his resolve against us. Better to demonstrate that his new allies are not as noble as they pretend. What do you propose to say? Dooku's smile carried dark anticipation. Let him disable the shield generator. Let him feel victorious, heroic even. Then activate Protocol Sentinel. Show him what the Republic does when victory requires uncomfortable sacrifices. Below, Piccolo crashed through Christophsis' upper atmosphere, his Ki barrier blazing against friction that would have vaporized most starfighters. The shield generator facility came into view, a massive structure bristling with anti-air cannons and surrounded by battle droids. The automated defenses opened fire instantly. Turbo laser bolts and missile salvos converged on his position from dozens of angles. Piccolo weaved between them with contemptuous ease, his enhanced speed and combat instincts making Republic targeting computers look primitive. He landed on the facility's central tower with enough force to crack the duracrete beneath his feet. Battle droids swarmed from every entrance, their vocabulators chattering as they identified the target and engaged. Roger, Roger. Hostile identified. Eliminate target. Piccolo's hand extended, energy gathering at his fingertips. Not a full power blast that would vaporize everything. Just enough concentrated force to shatter the droids without collapsing the tower. The explosion tore through droid ranks like a golden wave, scattering components across the tower's surface. The surviving droids hesitated, their programming struggling to process a threat their sensors couldn't properly classify. Piccolo dropped through the tower's access hatch, descending into the facility's depths where the main generator hummed with massive energy output. The shield protecting the city drew power from here, disable it, and clone troopers could land without being shot down by defensive batteries. Simple, efficient, surgical. He raised his hand toward the generator's primary coupling, ready to sever the power flow with a precisely controlled energy blast. His senses expanded, checking for civilian presence, for innocents who might be caught in. His antennae detected something wrong. Energy signatures in the facility's lower levels. Not droids, not military personnel, living beings, dozens of them. Civilians. Piccolo's hand hesitated, energy dissipating. He extended his awareness further, using his adapted force-sensing capabilities to understand what he was detecting. The signatures were weak, confined, their emotional resonance carrying fear and despair. Prisoners. The Separatists were using prisoners as human shields around their critical infrastructure. The communicator on his belt crackled. Commander Piccolo, status report. We're seeing weapons fire, but the shield's still operational. Piccolo didn't respond immediately. His mind raced through scenarios, calculating options. If he destroyed the generator, the explosion might kill the prisoners in the lower levels. If he disabled it surgically, he'd need time to evacuate those people first, time that would alert separatist forces and allow them to organize a more effective defense. If he aborted entirely, clone troopers would die in the ground assault. Soldiers he'd fought beside for 3 weeks, or civilians imprisoned through no choice of their own. Piccolo? Ahsoka's voice came through the communicator. What's wrong? We're detecting your energy signature, but no generator failure. There are prisoners here, Piccolo said quietly. Civilians locked in the lower levels. The separatists built their facility around them deliberately. Silence on the comm for several heartbeats. Then Anakin's voice, cold and controlled. How many? 40, maybe 50. Families, children. Another pause. Then Admiral Yularen's voice, heavy with military necessity. Commander, we have one opportunity for this operation. If we abort now, we lose tactical advantage. The men will have to conduct a standard assault with projected casualties exceeding 200 clones. I know what you're asking, Piccolo said, his fist clenching. You're asking me to choose which group of innocents dies. I'm asking you to make the choice every commander makes in war, Yularen replied. Save the many or save the few. Piccolo thought of King Piccolo, who'd made those calculations without hesitation. Sacrifice anything and anyone for power. He thought of Kami, who'd allowed himself to be absorbed to save the greater good. He thought of Gohan, who'd struggled with every fight because violence contradicted his gentle nature. And he thought of Goku, who'd somehow always found the third option. The impossible solution that saved everyone through sheer stubborn refusal to accept tragic necessity. There's always another way, Piccolo said, not knowing if he believed it, but needing to try. On the Invincible's bridge, Count Dooku smiled. Now he learns, the Sith Lord murmured, what it truly means to serve the Republic. Piccolo stood in the shield generator facility's main chamber, surrounded by the hum of massive energy converters and the distant sounds of battle droids mobilizing. Through the durasteel floor beneath his feet, he could sense those 40-plus civilian signatures, families huddled together, their fear a palpable presence even through his imperfect, force-sensing adaptation. The communicator crackled again. Rex's voice this time, steady but urgent. Commander, we're holding position, but Admiral Trench's fleet is moving into bombardment range. Whatever you're doing, you need to do it fast. Piccolo's mind worked through the problem with the same analytical precision he'd developed fighting beings like Cell, opponents whose power demanded creative solutions rather than brute force. The generator couldn't be destroyed without risking the prisoners. Standard evacuation would take too long and alert every separatist force on the planet. He needed speed, precision, and a technique he'd never attempted in this universe. Ahsoka, Piccolo said into the communicator, 3 weeks ago you asked me about my abilities, whether everything I showed you was the extent of my power. I remember, the Padawan replied, confusion evident in her voice. You said you'd been holding back because you were still adjusting to the galaxy's energy patterns. I'm adjusted now. Piccolo closed his eyes, feeling his ki flow freely through channels that had finally acclimated to the force-saturated environment. I'm going to try something. If it works, the shield drops and the prisoners evacuate safely. If it doesn't, he paused, considering the consequences. Well, you'll know because there will be a very large explosion. That's not reassuring. Ahsoka's voice pitched higher. It's not meant to be. Stand by. Piccolo dropped through the facility floor, his energy-enhanced strength tearing through durasteel like paper. He descended 3 levels in seconds, following those civilian signatures to their source, a reinforced holding area where Christophsis natives were imprisoned in cramped cells. Men, women, children, all bearing the distinctive crystalline features of their species, all staring at him with terrified eyes as he materialized through their ceiling. I'm getting you out, Piccolo said in basic, his voice carrying absolute certainty. Don't resist, don't panic, and whatever you do, don't let go. Before they could respond, Piccolo's body began to shift. His cells expanded, stretched, his Namekian physiology demonstrating the flexibility that made his species unique even in his home universe. His arms elongated, wrapping around the prisoners like massive serpents, his torso expanding to create a protective cocoon. Within seconds, he'd enveloped all 47 civilians in a living shield of green flesh. The prisoners screamed, understandably terrified by the transformation. But Piccolo's grip remained gentle despite its strength, his body absorbing their impacts as they struggled. "Hold still," he commanded, his voice resonating through his expanded mass. "This is going to be rough, but it's better than the alternative." He launched upward, his ki propelling his grotesquely enlarged body through the levels he descended. Battle droids opened fire as he emerged into the main chamber, their blasters striking his outer layer, but failing to penetrate deep enough to harm the civilians cocooned within. Piccolo's stretched arm extended toward the generator's primary power coupling. Energy gathered at his fingertip, not an explosive blast, but a concentrated cutting beam. The special beam cannon, his signature technique, compressed to surgical precision. The golden spiral of energy lanced through the coupling with a high-pitched whine. Sparks erupted as power conduits severed, and the massive shield generator began its emergency shutdown sequence. Through the facility's viewports, Piccolo saw the translucent energy dome protecting Christophas's capital flicker and collapse. "Shield is down!" Rex's voice erupted from the communicator still attached to Piccolo's belt. "All units, begin assault! Go, go, go!" But Piccolo wasn't done. His enlarged body, still carrying the prisoners, crashed through the facility's outer wall and launched into the sky. Light gunships streaked past him, carrying clone troopers toward their landing zones. He flew higher, faster, putting distance between the civilians and the inevitable battle as Republic forces clashed with separatist droids. 2 kilometers from the city, Piccolo landed in a crystalline valley untouched by warfare. His body contracted rapidly, returning to normal size as he carefully deposited the prisoners on solid ground. They stumbled away from him, their crystalline features reflecting shock and confusion. "You're safe now," Piccolo said, already preparing to return to the battle. "Stay here until Republic forces secure the area." A female Christophesian, her crystalline skin showing the fine cracks of advanced age, stepped forward despite her obvious fear. You are not with the Republic? Your appearance? Your abilities?" "I'm from somewhere else," Piccolo interrupted. "Somewhere far from your war. But I'm here now, and I won't let civilians die as collateral damage." He launched back into the sky before she could respond, accelerating toward the city where turbo laser fire and explosions painted the air orange and red. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Yularen watched tactical displays with barely contained amazement. He saved them, all of them, extracted 47 civilians while simultaneously disabling the generator and allowing our assault to proceed on schedule. Anakin's grin was wolfish. "I told you he was impressive." "Impressive doesn't cover it, Sky Guy," Ahsoka said, her own smile matching her master's. "Did you see what he did? His body just expanded, stretched like rubber but maintained structural integrity. That's not force ability. That's pure biological adaptation. His species must have extraordinary physiological flexibility," Yularen observed, making notes in his tactical log. "The strategic applications alone—" "Admiral," Anakin's tone carried warning. "He's not a weapon to be analyzed and deployed. He's an ally who chose to help." "There's a difference." Yularen had the grace to look chagrined. "Of course, General. My apologies. Though I can't help but note that Count Dooku will be extremely disappointed by this outcome." On the Invincible, Dooku was indeed displeased. His carefully orchestrated moral dilemma, forced Piccolo to choose between soldier and civilian casualties, had been completely bypassed through a solution the Sith Lord hadn't anticipated. The Namekin's capabilities exceeded his intelligence reports by a significant margin. "Shall we continue the orbital bombardment?" Admiral Trench asked, his arachnid features showing no emotion beyond tactical calculation. "The Republic forces are committed now. We could inflict massive casualties." "No." Dooku's decision came after several seconds of consideration. Piccolo demonstrated restraint and creativity. Attacking now would only validate his choice to ally with the Republic. Better to withdraw and reassess. "You're letting him win?" General Grievous stepped forward, his mechanical voice carrying disbelief. "We have superior firepower, superior position." We have a warrior who just proved he can evacuate civilians from a fortified facility while simultaneously completing military objectives. Dooku interrupted coldly. Attacking now would cost us resources we can't spare while potentially pushing him into permanent alliance with our enemies. Strategic patience, General. Something you should learn. Grievous's yellow eyes blazed with fury, but he said nothing. The cyborg general had learned, painfully, that contradicting Dooku too strongly led to force-enhanced discipline. Below, Piccolo rejoined the battle in Christophasis's capital. Clone troopers had secured the generator facility and were pushing deeper into the city, their white armor standing out against crystalline architecture. Battle droids fell back in organized retreat, their programming recognizing a losing tactical situation. Piccolo landed beside Rex, whose armor showed fresh scorch marks from blaster fire. The clone commander looked up at the Namekian, his expression unreadable behind his helmet's visor. "You saved them," Rex said simply. "The prisoners. You didn't have to, but you did." "I wasn't going to let them die." Piccolo's tone suggested the decision had been obvious, even though they both knew it hadn't been. No one should die because they're strategically inconvenient. Rex removed his helmet, revealing a face lined with stress beyond his accelerated age. Most commanders wouldn't have tried. They'd have made the hard choice, destroyed the generator, and logged the civilian casualties as acceptable losses. His eyes met Piccolo's directly. "Thank you for reminding us that there's usually another way." Before Piccolo could respond, the ground beneath them exploded. Not from above, from below. Massive drill-tipped vehicles burst through the crystalline substrate, their hulls painted with separatist insignia. Hatches opened, disgorging super battle droids, commando droids, and something Piccolo hadn't seen before. Tall, heavily armored droids carrying massive riot shields and electrostaffs. "Magna Guards!" Rex shouted, raising his blaster. "General Skywalker, we've got trouble. Separatist reinforcements just tunneled under our position." The battle descended into chaos. Clone troopers scrambled for defensive positions as the new droid forces established a perimeter. Piccolo's fist ignited with golden energy, ready to engage, when his enhanced hearing caught something that made his blood run cold. Beneath the sounds of combat, beneath the explosions and shouted orders, he heard a mechanical voice, calm, cultured, and instantly recognizable. "Greetings, Commander Piccolo." Count Dooku's holographic form materialized from one of the tunnel vehicles, projected at 10-foot height for dramatic effect. "I must congratulate you on your creative solution to my little moral puzzle. Truly impressive." "Your puzzle?" Piccolo's voice dropped to dangerous register. "You put those civilians there. You orchestrated this entire situation?" "Guilty as charged." Dooku's holographic smile carried no shame. "I needed to know if you possessed the cunning to match your power. You passed admirably. But now we move to the next test. Combat capability when the stakes are personal." The Magna Guards advanced, their electrostaffs crackling with energy that made Piccolo's antennae twitch. Behind them, the super battle droids raised their wrist-mounted blasters, targeting not Piccolo, but the clone troopers around him. "General Skywalker is currently engaged 3 kilometers north," Dooku continued conversationally. "His Padawan is securing civilian evacuation routes. That leaves you alone with Commander Rex's battalion against a force specifically designed to test your limits. The Magna Guard's electrostaffs generate ionic disruption fields. I'm curious how your KI responds to electromagnetic interference at close range." Piccolo moved instantly, placing himself between the Magna Guards and Rex's troopers. "You're using your own soldiers as test subjects. Don't you care about the droids you're sacrificing?" "They're machines," Dooku replied. "Replaceable, expendable, purpose-built for exactly this function. Much like the clones you've grown so fond of, actually. The only difference is that I acknowledge their disposable nature, rather than pretending it's noble service." The Magna Guards attacked in perfect synchronization, their electrostaffs swinging in patterns designed to overwhelm a single opponent. Piccolo blocked the first strike with his forearm, and immediately felt the ionic disruption, crackling energy that interfered with his ki flow. Similar to the universal static he'd experienced during his first weeks in this galaxy, but more concentrated, more aggressive. His energy output dropped to 70% efficiency where the electrostaff made contact, not crippling, but significant enough to validate Dooku's strategy. The Sith Lord had done his research, identified a potential vulnerability, and designed weapons to exploit it. Behind Piccolo, clone troopers opened fire on the super battle droids. Blaster bolts filled the air with crimson and blue light, creating a deadly crossfire that threatened to catch anyone standing between the two forces. "Rex, pull your men back," Piccolo shouted, deflecting another electrostaff strike. "Get to the facility. Establish defensive positions inside." "We don't abandon brothers!" Rex fired his dual blasters, dropping two super battle droids with precise headshots. "We fight together or we fall together. You're not abandoning anyone. You're giving me room to work." Piccolo caught an electrostaff with his bare hand, ignoring the ionic disruption as he crushed the weapon's power cell. The Magna Guard stumbled, and Piccolo's other hand drove through its chest with enough force to tear circuitry and wiring into useless scrap. But four more Magna Guards replaced the fallen one immediately, their movements adapting to his fighting style with disturbing efficiency. These weren't simple battle droids. They possessed sophisticated combat algorithms that learned and evolved mid-battle. "Fall back," Rex finally ordered, recognizing that Piccolo needed space. "Fighting retreat to the facility. Cover fire and move." The clones executed the maneuver with practiced precision, laying down suppressing fire as they withdrew in organized pairs. But the super battle droids pursued relentlessly, their heavier armor absorbing blaster hits that would disable standard droids. Piccolo's energy flared, golden aura erupting around his body despite the ionic interference from nearby electrostaffs. He needed to end this quickly, before clone casualties mounted. But Dooku's positioning was calculated. The Magna Guards forced close-quarters combat, where Piccolo's energy attacks risked hitting friendly forces. "Enjoying the challenge?" Dooku's hologram asked mockingly. "This is what serving the Republic means, Commander. Complicated battlefield conditions, friendly forces restricting your options, enemies who adapt and exploit weaknesses. Pure power is nothing without strategic flexibility." Piccolo's response was to grab the nearest Magna Guard by its head and hurl it at the super battle droids pursuing Rex's men. The droid's body crashed through 6 of its companions, scattering components across crystalline ground. "I've fought smarter enemies than you," Piccolo said, his voice deadly calm. "Beings who could destroy planets with a thought, who commanded armies that made your droid forces look like toys. You think a few electromagnetic weapons and tactical positioning impresses me?" "I think," Dooku replied, his holographic eyes gleaming with dark amusement, "that you're about to learn why the Jedi Council fears the Sith. Because unlike the Jedi who fight with restraint, we fight to win." The ground erupted again, not with more droids, but with explosive charges the Magna Guards had been placing during their engagement. The detonations ripped through the crystalline substrate, creating massive fissures that spread like cracks across glass. The entire city block began collapsing. Clone troopers scrambled for stable ground as crystal structures shattered and fell. Rex's voice crackled over the comm, trying to coordinate evacuation. But the chaos made organized retreat impossible. Piccolo made his choice instantly. He abandoned the Magna Guard engagement, launching into the air to catch a collapsing crystal tower before it could crush a squad of clones. The structure's weight was immense. Thousands of tons of crystalline architecture, but his strength held. Barely. The Magna Guards capitalized immediately, converging on his position while he was immobilized holding the tower. Their electrostaff struck in rapid succession, ionic disruption cascading through his body and reducing his key output to 50% efficiency. The tower began slipping from his grip. "Commander!" Rex's voice was distant, struggling to coordinate while dodging debris. "Let it go. We'll find another way." "There isn't another way." Piccolo's muscles strained, his entire body trembling with effort as ionic disruption fought against his key reinforcement. The tower continued falling, its trajectory heading straight for a group of clones trapped by collapsed structures. And then Piccolo felt it, a sudden surge in the ambient energy around him. Not his key, but the force itself, flowing through the battlefield in response to collective desperation. He couldn't manipulate it like the Jedi, couldn't channel it through their techniques. But his weeks of adaptation had taught him something. The Force responded to will, to need, to absolute determination. Piccolo's antennae focused that determination into a singular demand. Hold. The Force responded, not controlled by him, but aligning with his intent. The falling tower's momentum slowed fractionally, buying him seconds to adjust his grip. Seconds to redirect his chi flow around the ionic disruption rather than through it. Seconds to hurl the towers sideways into the advancing Magnagard formation, crushing them beneath tons of crystal. He dropped to the ground, energy depleted but functional. Around him, the battle had reached a stalemate. Separatist forces falling back, Republic clones holding position, both sides exhausted and wary. Dooku's hologram remained, studying Piccolo with newfound respect. You touch the Force, not through midi-chlorians, not through traditional connection, but through pure will imposing itself on galactic energy. Remarkable. Is the test over? Piccolo asked, his breathing heavy but controlled. Or do I need to destroy more of your toys? The test is over, Dooku confirmed. You've demonstrated strategic thinking, tactical adaptability, and, most importantly, prioritization of life over victory. Exactly the qualities that make you dangerous to my master's plans. The hologram began flickering, preparing to disconnect. But before it vanished, Dooku's expression turned serious, almost regretful. Enjoy your time with the Republic, Commander Piccolo. But remember, I offered you truth while they offer you convenient lies. When you finally see the Jedi Council's true nature, when you understand how deeply the corruption runs, I'll be waiting. The hologram vanished. The Separatist forces withdrew into their tunnel vehicles, collapsing the passages behind them as they retreated. Piccolo stood among the ruins of Christophasis's capital, surrounded by clone troopers whose lives he'd just saved through methods he barely understood. Fighting for a cause he still wasn't sure deserved defending. And for the first time since arriving in this galaxy, he wondered if Dooku might be right about one thing. The Republic's convenient lies might be more dangerous than the Sith's obvious treachery. The journey back to Coruscant took 3 days through hyperspace, giving Piccolo time to reflect on everything that had happened since his arrival in this galaxy. The Resolute hummed with activity as clone troopers repaired damage, restocked ammunition, and processed casualty reports. Christophasis had been a victory, barely. 23 clones killed, another 47 wounded. Numbers that would have been catastrophically higher without Piccolo's intervention. But those 23 deaths weighed on him more than he'd expected. He stood in the observation deck where he'd first spoken with Ahsoka, watching hyperspace's blue-white tunnel stream past the viewport. Behind him, the door hissed open. He didn't turn around. His enhanced hearing had already identified Anakin Skywalker's distinctive footsteps. You've been avoiding the debriefing, Anakin said, leaning against the viewport beside him. Admiral Yularen is convinced you're going to be a nightmare for his after-action reports. I don't answer to him, Piccolo replied, or to you, or to anyone in your republic. I know, Anakin's tone carried no judgment, but you fought with us, saved lives. That means something, even if you don't want to admit it. Piccolo's antennae twitched with irritation. Dooku was right about one thing. Your republic uses those clones like property, sends them into battles that serve political agendas instead of actual defense. And when they die, you log them as numbers in casualty reports rather than people. You think I don't know that? Anakin's voice dropped to something raw, almost vulnerable. You think I don't hate what this war has turned us into? Every mission, every battle, I watch good men die following orders that come from senators who've never seen combat. Rex, Fives, Echo, they're not just soldiers to me. They're brothers. But you still lead them into those battles, Piccolo countered. You still participate in a system you claim to hate. Because the alternative is worse. Anakin's frustration bled through now, the controlled Jedi mask slipping. If I walk away, if the Jedi abandon the Republic, the Separatists win. Dooku wins, and his vision for the galaxy is built on corporate tyranny and Sith manipulation. At least the Republic can be reformed. At least there's hope for something better. Hope isn't strategy, Piccolo said. Hope is what people cling to when they've run out of real options. Anakin was silent for several heartbeats. Then surprisingly, he laughed, bitter and tired. You sound like Obi-Wan when he's particularly pessimistic, which is terrifying because Obi-Wan is usually the optimist in our partnership. Despite himself, Piccolo's expression softened slightly. Your master, the one who trained you. My former master, Anakin corrected. I'm a Jedi Knight now, which means I get to make my own mistakes instead of learning from his. He sobered, turning to face Piccolo directly. Look, I know you're not Republic. I know you're not Jedi. But you fought beside us, bled with us, and saved lives that would have been lost without you. That makes you one of us, whether you accept the label or not. I'm going home, Piccolo said firmly. As soon as I figure out how to reverse the dimensional breach that brought me here. This isn't my galaxy, isn't my fight. Maybe not, Anakin agreed. But while you're here, you're making a difference. That counts for something. Before Piccolo could respond, Ahsoka's voice crackled over the intercom. Master, we're dropping out of hyperspace in 5 minutes. Master Yoda wants Piccolo to report to the Jedi Temple immediately upon arrival. Anakin's expression darkened. The Council wants to debrief him. This should be interesting. The Jedi Temple dominated Coruscant's skyline like a monument to ancient power, its 5 spires reaching toward the polluted sky. Piccolo had seen it from orbit during his arrival at the Republic capital, but standing before its massive doors gave him new appreciation for the scale. This was the headquarters of beings who'd maintained peace across the galaxy for millennia, until they'd been drawn into a war that corrupted everything they claimed to represent. Master Yoda greeted him personally at the temple entrance, the ancient Jedi leaning heavily on his Geimer stick. Welcome to Coruscant, Commander Piccolo. Tour the temple, you will. Meet the Council, you must. Understand the Jedi, you should. I'm not here to become a Jedi, Piccolo said flatly. Know this, I do. Yoda's ears tilted with what might have been amusement. But understand us, you still should. Walk different paths we may, but similar destinations we seek. Peace, protection, balance. They walk through corridors lined with ancient statues and holocron repositories, passing Jedi of dozens of species, all carrying lightsabers, all radiating that distinctive Force energy. Younglings practice basic telekinesis under the supervision of instructors. Padawans sparred with training sabers, their movements flowing with enhanced speed and precision. For generations, trained Jedi here we have, Yoda explained, his backward syntax somehow lending gravitas to his words. Seekers of knowledge, keepers of peace, servants of the Force. But now, generals we have become, warriors we have become, and question our purpose we must. They entered a turbo lift that ascended toward the temple's highest tower. As they rose, Yoda continued speaking, his tone carrying centuries of accumulated wisdom and regret. A prophecy there is, of one who will bring balance to the Force, destroy the Sith, restore harmony. Long have we searched for this chosen one. But perhaps, the ancient master's eyes fixed on Piccolo with unsettling intensity. Perhaps balance comes not from within our framework, but from outside it. Perhaps the Force brings you here for reason beyond understanding? I'm not your prophecy, Piccolo said. I'm not even from your universe. I'm just trying to survive until I can go home. Yet survive by protecting others, you choose. Fight by saving lives, you decide. Destroy when eliminate is easier, you refuse. Yoda's Geimer stick tapped against the turbolift floor. Actions reveal character. Words merely describe it. The turbo lift opened onto the council chamber, a circular room with 12 seats arranged in a circle, vast windows offering panoramic views of Coruscant's endless urban sprawl. Most of the seats were occupied. Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Plo Koon, Luminara Unduli, and several others Piccolo hadn't met. Their collective Force presence was overwhelming, like standing in the center of a star's corona. But to Piccolo, who'd survived the pressure of beings like Shin, it was merely impressive rather than threatening. Commander Piccolo, Mace Windu began formally, his hands folded in his lap. You've spent 3 weeks observing Republic operations. You've participated in combat, saved lives, and demonstrated capabilities that challenge our understanding of power itself. The Council has convened to discuss your status and future involvement in the war effort. I already told you, I'm not joining your war permanently, Piccolo's tone brooked no argument. I helped on Christophersus because the alternative was watching good soldiers die, but I won't be your weapon. No one is asking you to be a weapon, Kit Fisto said, his perpetual smile strained. But your capabilities are unprecedented. You exist outside the Force, which makes you immune to many Sith powers. You possess physical strength that rivals the most powerful Force users, and you've shown tactical wisdom beyond what we'd expect from a warrior culture background. Flattery doesn't change my answer. Luminara Undali leaned forward, her expression grave. This isn't flattery, it's assessment. You've encountered Count Dooku twice now. Both times he's expressed extraordinary interest in recruiting you to the Separatist cause. If you refuse alliance with the Republic, what's to prevent him from succeeding? My own judgment, Piccolo replied coldly. I've seen enough of both sides to know neither deserves blind loyalty. The Republic enslaves manufactured soldiers. The Separatists use civilian hostages. You both claim moral superiority while drowning in compromise. The council chamber fell silent. Several Jedi shifted uncomfortably, their Force presences flickering with shame, anger, or resignation. Mace Windu's jaw tightened. The galaxy is not simple. Moral absolutes are luxuries we can't afford during war. That's what every tyrant says right before they become what they fought against. Piccolo's eyes swept across the council members. In my universe, I watched the Saiyan Prince Vegeta struggle with exactly this trap. He committed atrocities believing strength justified anything. It took years for him to understand that power without principle is just another form of weakness. And what are your principles? Plo Koon asked, his breathing mask hissing. What drives a warrior from beyond the stars to risk his life for people he doesn't know, in a war he claims isn't his concern? Piccolo was quiet for several moments, considering the question honestly. I was created to be a demon king, born as the reincarnation of pure evil, designed to terrorize and destroy. For years I lived up to that purpose. I killed innocents, threatened worlds, saw other beings as obstacles or tools. His fist clenched at the memories. But I changed. I chose to protect instead of destroy, to fight for others instead of myself. Not because of destiny or prophecy, because I decided that's who I wanted to be. He met Yoda's ancient eyes directly. You talk about balance in the Force, about light and dark, about prophecies and chosen ones. But true balance comes from choice. Every day, every battle, every moment, you choose who you are. The Force doesn't make that choice for you. Yoda's ears lifted, his expression unreadable. Wise words these are, but incomplete, your understanding remains. The Force is not destiny. The Force is connection. Between all living things, between past and future, between action and consequence. Ignore it, beings may. Reject it, some do. But exist without it, none can. Not in this galaxy. Except me, Piccolo pointed out. I exist outside your Force. My power comes from within, not from some cosmic energy field. So you believe, Yoda said softly. But on Christophersus, touch the Force you did. Not through midi-chlorians, not through training, but through absolute need. The Force responds to will, to determination, to souls that refuse to accept tragedy. Perhaps exist outside the Force? You do not. Perhaps simply interact with it differently you do. Before Piccolo could process this, the council chamber's doors burst open. A clone trooper, Captain Rex, still in his battle-worn armor, rushed in with such urgency that even the Jedi Masters straightened in their seats. Masters, forgive the intrusion, Rex said, breathing hard, but we've received an emergency transmission. It's from Chancellor Palpatine. He's been taken hostage. The council erupted into controlled chaos. Mace Windu rose immediately, his hand moving to his lightsaber. Details, Captain. Where? When? Who's responsible? The Chancellor's private residence on Coruscant, Rex reported. 20 minutes ago. The kidnappers identified themselves as Separatist Special Forces, but he hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with what he was about to say. But the security footage shows something strange. The attackers moved with precision that suggests Force training. And their leader, the security cameras caught a brief glimpse before being destroyed, wore a mask, but his build and movement patterns match Count Dooku. Dooku wouldn't risk a personal operation on Coruscant, Kit Fisto objected. It's too exposed, too dangerous for someone of his importance to the Separatist leadership. Unless, Piccolo said slowly, his analytical mind recognizing a pattern. This isn't about kidnapping at all. It's about drawing specific people into a trap. Every Jedi in the room turned to face him. Mace Windu's expression darkened with understanding. You think Dooku planned this specifically to force your hand? Make you choose between Republic leadership and neutrality. It's exactly what he'd do, Piccolo confirmed. He's been testing me since I arrived. Moral dilemmas, combat capabilities, psychological pressure. Now he's escalating. Take the Republic's leader, force me to either help rescue him or reveal that my principles are conditional. Yoda's ears drooped with profound sadness. But real, the danger remains. Whether trap or genuine kidnapping, rescue the Chancellor we must. Too valuable to the Republic his leadership is. Too dangerous his knowledge in enemy hands would be. Anakin Skywalker's voice crackled over the comm system before anyone could respond. Masters, General Skywalker requesting permission to launch immediate rescue operation. Obi-Wan and I can have strike teams mobilized within negative. General Skywalker, Windu interrupted. This is clearly a trap designed to draw our most powerful assets into a kill zone. We need to assess the situation before committing forces. While we assess, the Chancellor could be executed. Anakin's frustration was palpable, even through the comm. Every second we delay, General Skywalker is right, Piccolo interrupted, surprised by his own words. If Dooku has the Chancellor, waiting just gives him time to extract information or move him off-world. The rescue needs to happen now. Windu's eyes narrowed. You're volunteering to help rescue a Republic leader you've expressed nothing but skepticism toward? I'm volunteering to stop Dooku from getting what he wants, Piccolo corrected, which is me making emotional decisions based on artificial pressure. If this is a trap, then I'm going to spring it on my terms, not his. The Council exchanged glances, silent communication flowing between them through the Force. Finally, Yoda nodded slowly. Go with Skywalker, you will. Rescue the Chancellor, you shall attempt. But careful you must be. Expect you, Dooku does. Prepared for your coming, he will be. I'm counting on it, Piccolo said, already moving toward the exit. Because if he thinks he knows what I'm capable of, he's about to learn he was wrong. As Piccolo left the council chamber, Yoda turned to Mace Windu with an expression of deep concern. Sense something, you do? Windu asked quietly. The Force moves strangely around the Namekian, Yoda replied, his voice barely a whisper. See the future clearly, I cannot. But feel I do that tonight, more than the Chancellor's fate will be decided. Tonight, perhaps the war's true nature will be revealed. In the industrial district of Coruscant's lower levels, Chancellor Palpatine sat bound to a chair in a darkened warehouse, surrounded by masked figures whose Force signatures pulsed with dark-side energy. Count Dooku stood before him, his elegant features composed despite the violent setting. Was this theatric display really necessary, my master? Dooku asked, though his tone carried respect rather than criticism. The Chancellor's kindly expression melted away like wax, revealing the cold calculation beneath. Darth Sidious's yellow eyes gleamed in the darkness as he flexed against the deliberately weak restraints. Absolutely necessary, my apprentice. The Namekian grows too comfortable with the Jedi, too willing to help them. We need to demonstrate the depths of Republic corruption, show him that even their highest leaders serve the Sith. And what better way than to let him rescue me? Sidious's smile was pure predation. When he discovers that the man he saved is the very Sith Lord orchestrating this war, that revelation will break something in him, make him question everything, isolate him from his newfound allies. And if he decides to eliminate you instead? Dooku asked carefully. Then you will ensure that doesn't happen, Sidious replied. But I don't think he will. The Namekian values life too much, hesitates before killing, seeks alternatives to violence. It's both his greatest strength and his most exploitable weakness. Dooku bowed slightly. I sense Skywalker's approach. The Namekian is with him. Excellent. Sidious closed his eyes. allowing his Darth Sidious persona to recede and Chancellor Palpatine's terrified victim mask to return. Let the rescue proceed. Let them feel heroic. And then, let them discover the truth they're too blind to see. In the Coruscant sky, a Republic gunship streaked toward the industrial district, carrying Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Piccolo toward a confrontation that would shatter everything they thought they understood about the Clone Wars. The Republic gunship descended through Coruscant's polluted atmosphere, its repulsor lifts whining as it navigated between industrial towers and cargo platforms. Inside the passenger bay, Piccolo sat across from Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, studying the two Jedi with calculating eyes. Anakin radiated barely controlled aggression, his mechanical hand clenching and unclenching against his knee. Obi-Wan, by contrast, projected calm meditation, but Piccolo's enhanced senses detected the tension beneath, like a coiled spring waiting to release. The Chancellor's signal is coming from Warehouse District 773, Obi-Wan said, studying a tactical display. Heavy industrial area, mostly abandoned since the manufacturing sector moved off-world. Perfect location for an ambush. Which is why we're going in anyway, Anakin said, his voice tight. Palpatine has been a friend to the Jedi Order since before the war. I won't abandon him to separatist interrogation. No one's suggesting abandonment, Anakin. Obi-Wan's tone carried the patience of someone who'd had this conversation countless times. But we should acknowledge this is almost certainly a trap designed to draw me out, Piccolo interrupted. Dooku wants me to see something, wants to prove some point about the Republic or the Jedi. This entire operation is theater. Then why participate? Obi-Wan asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. If you recognize the manipulation, why allow yourself to be manipulated? Because somewhere in Dooku's theater is a real person who'll die if we don't act. Piccolo's expression hardened with memory. I've made the mistake of ignoring obvious traps before, assuming the bait wasn't real. Every time innocent people paid for my tactical caution with their lives, I won't make that mistake again. The gunship shuddered as it landed on a warehouse rooftop. Clone troopers poured out first, establishing a security perimeter while the Jedi and Piccolo disembarked. Captain Rex approached, his helmet's visor reflecting the industrial district's sodium lights. Thermal scans show multiple heat signatures inside the warehouse, Rex reported. At least 30 humanoids, plus something big in the central chamber, could be separatist war machines or just industrial equipment. No clear reading on the Chancellor's location. Then we go in fast and hard, Anakin said, igniting his blue lightsaber. Piccolo, can you sense? I feel multiple force signatures, Piccolo interrupted, his antennae twitching as he extended his adapted sensing abilities. Strong ones, not droids. These are living beings trained in your power system. And one of them, he paused, focusing on a presence that felt simultaneously familiar and completely alien. One of them feels wrong, like it's hiding something massive behind a thin mask. Obi-Wan and Anakin exchanged glances, silent Jedi communication flowing between them. Then Obi-Wan spoke carefully. Wrong how? Like standing next to a black hole pretending to be a candle, Piccolo said, his combat instincts screaming warnings his conscious mind couldn't quite interpret. Powerful beyond anything I've sensed in this galaxy, but compressed, hidden, deliberately suppressed. That's not Dooku, Anakin said, his lightsaber humming nervously. Dooku's powerful, but not whatever you're describing. Then who or what is in there with him? Obi-Wan's hand moved to his lightsaber hilt, his calm facade cracking slightly. Before anyone could answer, the warehouse's main entrance exploded outward. Not from internal detonation, but from raw force power. Invisible energy that tore durasteel doors from their hinges and sent them flying across the landing platform. Through the smoke and debris, Count Dooku emerged, his curved lightsaber ignited, his expression carrying grim satisfaction. Welcome, gentlemen, Dooku said, his cultured voice carrying across the rooftop. I'm pleased you accepted my invitation so promptly, though I must admit, bringing Commander Piccolo was predictable. You Jedi have grown so dependent on external power to compensate for your own inadequacies. Where's Chancellor Palpatine? Anakin demanded, his lightsaber raised in aggressive gem. So stance. Inside, unharmed and waiting for rescue, Dooku's smile was thin. But you'll have to go through me first. And this time, Piccolo, you won't have the element of surprise or the luxury of holding back to protect civilian infrastructure. Piccolo stepped forward, his weighted cape billowing in the industrial wind. I've been wondering when you'd stop testing and start fighting seriously. Let's see if the famous Sith Lord lives up to his reputation. Oh, I assure you, Dooku replied, his lightsaber spinning in a flourish that would have been theatrical from anyone else but carried genuine menace from him. I exceed it. The Sith Lord moved with speed that shocked even Piccolo, force-enhanced velocity that closed the distance between them in a heartbeat. His crimson blade came down in a strike designed to bisect from shoulder to hip, drawing on decades of lightsaber mastery and darkside augmentation. Piccolo blocked with his forearm, key barrier flaring to life around his limb. The lightsaber struck the energy shield and held, plasma meeting concentrated life force in a contest of incompatible power systems. Sparks erupted where the energies clashed, and Piccolo felt the heat even through his protective Kai. But unlike their first encounter, Piccolo had adapted. His Kai flow responded to the lightsaber's threat automatically, channeling more energy to the contact point, creating layers of defense that the plasma blade had to cut through sequentially. By the time it reached his actual skin, the blade's cutting power had been reduced to manageable burns, rather than instant severing. Piccolo's other hand drove toward Dooku's chest, energy gathering at his fingertips. The Sith Lord twisted impossibly, using force-enhanced flexibility to avoid the strike by millimeters. Blue lightning crackled from Dooku's free hand, striking Piccolo's shoulder and sending ionic disruption cascading through his nervous system. The Namekian snarled in pain but didn't retreat. Instead, he grabbed Dooku's wrist, the one generating the lightning, and squeezed. Bones creaked under the pressure, and the Sith Lord's composure finally cracked into genuine pain. Impressive, Dooku gasped, disengaging his lightsaber and using force push to create distance. You've adapted to lightsaber contact much faster than anticipated. Your learning curve is extraordinary. I've fought beings who could destroy solar systems, Piccolo replied, his shoulder still crackling with residual electricity. You're powerful, but you're not in their league. Perhaps not, Dooku admitted, his aristocratic mask fully back in place. But I don't need to be. I just need to be powerful enough to keep you occupied while the real revelation occurs inside. Anakin and Obi-Wan had been moving toward the warehouse entrance during Piccolo's engagement, but Dooku's words stopped them cold. What revelation? Obi-Wan asked, his lightsaber raised defensively. Why don't you go see for yourselves? Dooku gestured toward the warehouse with mock courtesy. Chancellor Palpatine is waiting. I'm sure he has much to tell you about the true nature of this war. Piccolo's antennae twitched, sensing the trap's jaws closing, but unable to identify its exact mechanism. This is what you wanted. Everything. The kidnapping, the location. Drawing us here specifically. What are we about to find? The truth, Dooku said simply, about who really controls the Republic. About who orchestrated the Clone Wars from both sides. About why the Jedi Order is doomed regardless of military victory. His expression turned almost sad. I tried to recruit you, Piccolo. Tried to show you that the Republic and Jedi were corrupt beyond redemption. But you needed to see it yourself from the source. Anakin's patience finally shattered. Enough riddles! He charged forward, lightsaber blazing, his Form V aggression fully unleashed. Obi-Wan followed immediately, his Soresuit defense complementing Anakin's offense in a coordinated assault they'd perfected through years of partnership. Dooku's curved lightsaber became a blur, deflecting both Jedi with contemptuous ease. His Makashi style, elegant, precise, designed specifically for lightsaber dueling, created an impenetrable defense that frustrated their every attack. You see? Dooku said conversationally while blocking Anakin's overhead strike. Even together you cannot overcome me, and I'm merely the apprentice. He force-pushed Obi-Wan backward, then redirected Anakin's momentum into a pillar. Imagine what my master can do. Your master isn't here, Piccolo said, gathering energy for a decisive strike. Just you. Are you certain? Dooku's smile was predatory. Are you absolutely certain that Darth Sidious, the hidden Sith Lord who orchestrated this entire war, isn't within 100 meters of where you're standing right now? The implication hit Piccolo like a physical blow. That massive force presence he'd sensed, hidden behind a thin mask of normalcy, inside the warehouse, near the Chancellor, near where they'd been told to find Chancellor Palpatine. No, Piccolo whispered, his mind racing through implications. You're saying... I'm saying nothing, Dooku interrupted, but perhaps you should rescue your precious Chancellor before drawing conclusions. Go on, Skywalker. Save your friend. Discover what the Jedi Council has been too blind to see for 13 years. Anakin looked torn between engaging Dooku and investigating the warehouse. His emotional attachment to Palpatine warred with his tactical training, creating visible conflict across his features. Go, Piccolo said, making the decision for him. I'll handle Dooku. You find the Chancellor and get him to safety. You can't fight a Sith Lord alone, Obi-Wan objected. I'm not from your universe, Piccolo reminded him. Your rules about Sith power don't apply to me. Go! The two Jedi exchanged glances, then rushed toward the warehouse entrance. Dooku made no move to stop them, his attention fully focused on Piccolo. Brave, the Sith Lord observed. Foolish, but brave. You're giving them exactly what my master wants, the moment of revelation that will break Skywalker's faith in the Jedi Order forever. Then your master's plan has a flaw, Piccolo said, his energy rising to combat levels. Because unlike your Jedi, I don't break when confronted with uncomfortable truths. I've lived through revelations that would shatter most beings' sense of reality. Whatever's in that warehouse, whatever truth you're so confident will destroy them, I'll find a way to deal with it. Will you? Dooku's lightsaber hummed as he settled into Makashi opening stance. Will you find a way to deal with the knowledge that you've been helping the very enemy you thought you were fighting? That every clone you saved, every battle you won, every life you preserved, all of it served the Sith's grand design? If that's true, Piccolo said coldly, then your master just made a critical mistake. Because I don't serve causes or governments or political philosophies. I protect people. And if your Sith Lord has been manipulating this entire war, using millions of lives as pawns in some cosmic game, then he's going to learn what happens when someone with real power decides to remove him from the board. Dooku's expression shifted, genuine surprise, perhaps respect, possibly even a hint of fear. You would challenge Darth Sidious, the most powerful Sith Lord in 1,000 years? I've fought gods, Piccolo replied. Your Sith Lord is just another tyrant who thinks power justifies everything. I've killed beings like that before. Then perhaps, Dooku said softly, you truly are the variable my master didn't account for. The external force that could upset his perfect plan. His lightsaber rose, which means I must ensure you don't survive this encounter. They exploded toward each other simultaneously. Sith Lord and Namekian warrior, lightsaber and Kai, dark side and pure will. The rooftop became a battlefield of impossible speed and devastating power. Two beings who existed outside normal physical limitations, testing their absolute limits. Inside the warehouse, Anakin and Obi-Wan descended through darkened corridors, their lightsabers providing the only illumination. Clone troopers followed in tight formation, their weapons raised and ready. Something's wrong, Obi-Wan muttered, his force senses straining. I can feel darkness here. Old darkness, like it's been hiding in plain sight for years. I feel it too, Anakin admitted, but the Chancellor is there. They entered a central chamber where Chancellor Palpatine sat bound to a chair, his elderly features showing fear and exhaustion. No guards, no defenses. Just the supposed leader of the Galactic Republic, alone and vulnerable. Anakin! Obi-Wan! Palpatine's voice carried desperate relief. Thank the Force you've arrived. Count Dooku is on the roof fighting Piccolo, Anakin interrupted, rushing to cut the Chancellor's bonds. We need to get you out of here before... Before what, young Skywalker? Palpatine's voice changed. The elderly tremor vanished, replaced by something cold and infinitely dangerous. Before you discover the truth? Anakin stepped back, his lightsaber instinctively rising between them. The Chancellor's kind expression melted away like a mask removed, revealing yellow eyes that burned with dark side power. The Force presence that had felt merely political suddenly revealed its true nature, vast, ancient, and drowning in the dark side. "No," Obi-Wan whispered, his lightsaber trembling. "It's not possible. You're Darth Sidious," the Sith Lord said, rising from his chair with unnatural grace. The bonds that had held him fell away like theatrical props. Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic, orchestrator of the Clone Wars, master of Count Dooku, and the architect of the Jedi Order's complete destruction. Lightning exploded from Sidious's fingers, striking both Jedi before they could react. Anakin and Obi-Wan screamed as dark-side energy coursed through their bodies, dropping them to their knees in agony. "Did you truly believe," Sidious continued conversationally while maintaining the lightning assault, "that a Sith Lord could orchestrate a galactic war without holding political power? Did you think I would hide in shadows when I could rule openly, smiling and shaking hands while the Republic and Jedi Order danced to my tune?" "The Council," Anakin gasped through the pain. "Master Yoda has been investigating me for years," Sidious interrupted, "but the Force itself clouds their vision around me. I've been Supreme Chancellor for 13 years, Skywalker. 13 years sitting in the same building as the Jedi Temple, meeting with your council regularly, and not one of you sensed what I truly am." He released the lightning, letting them collapse. "That's not my power. That's your order's arrogance." On the rooftop, Piccolo felt the sudden spike in dark-side energy through his adapted Force sensing. The mask he'd sensed earlier had dropped completely, revealing a presence that dwarfed even Dooku's considerable power. "Your master revealed himself," Piccolo said, blocking another lightsaber strike. "Why? Why drop his disguise now?" "Because the plan is complete," Dooku replied, genuine satisfaction in his voice. "The war has achieved its purpose. The Jedi are overextended, the Republic is militarized, and the clone army, our clone army, programmed with hidden directives, is positioned across the galaxy. All that remains is executing Order 66 and watching the Jedi Order burn." "Order 66? Piccolo's mind raced. "What is—" "A program built into every clone trooper's behavioral modification chip," Dooku explained, his fighting style shifting from testing to genuine killing intent. "When the Chancellor, when my master, activates it, every clone in the Grand Army will turn on their Jedi commanders simultaneously. 300,000 soldiers, all betraying their generals in the same instant. The Jedi Order will be extinct within hours." Piccolo's blood ran cold. Rex, Fives, Echo, Kix. Every clone he'd fought beside. Every soldier who'd treated him with respect and trust. They were all walking time bombs, programmed to murder the Jedi who led them. "And you're telling me this now?" Piccolo demanded. "Why reveal the plan?" "Because," a new voice said from the warehouse entrance, "you're going to die here, never having the opportunity to warn anyone." Darth Sidious emerged from the shadows, his yellow eyes gleaming with malevolent satisfaction. Behind him, Anakin and Obi-Wan stumbled forward, barely conscious, their lightsabers held at their own throats by invisible Force grips. "The Jedi will fall," Sidious continued, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "The Republic will become the Galactic Empire under my rule. And you, Commander Piccolo, warrior from beyond the stars, will be remembered as the unexpected variable that I successfully neutralized." Piccolo stood between two Sith Lords, watching his supposed allies held hostage by power he couldn't directly counter. Every instinct screamed to fight, to unleash his full power and tear this facility apart. But Dooku and Sidious were counting on that. Counting on him to act emotionally, to sacrifice everything for a dramatic gesture that would change nothing. So instead, Piccolo did something neither Sith expected. He smiled. "You made a mistake," Piccolo said calmly. "You revealed your plan before executing it. You exposed yourself before you were ready. And you assumed I was the only unexpected variable in this galaxy." He raised his hand to his forehead, the instant transmission gesture he'd practiced for weeks, adapting it to this universe's energy framework. He'd spent his time aboard the Resolute studying the Force, learning its rhythms, understanding how it connected beings across vast distances, and he'd found something, a presence far from Coruscant, ancient and powerful and patient, a Force signature that felt like finding one's teacher after years of searching. Master Yoda's energy signature, all the way in the Jedi Temple. "Goodbye, Sith Lords," Piccolo said. "Enjoy explaining to your master how you let critical intelligence escape." His ki flared, his adapted Force connection locked onto Yoda's signature, and reality twisted, space folded. Energy transported him across Coruscant in an instant, leaving the two Sith staring at empty space where he'd been standing. Piccolo materialized in the Jedi Council chamber, startling the masters who'd been in emergency session. Master Yoda looked up from his meditation, his ancient eyes widening with understanding. "Master Yoda," Piccolo said urgently, "the Chancellor is Darth Sidious. The clones have behavioral control chips programmed to kill Jedi on command. Anakin and Obi-Wan are captured, and the Sith are about to activate a galaxy-wide purge called Order 66. The council chamber erupted into chaos, but for the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Piccolo felt he'd finally done something that truly mattered. The war was about to change, and this time, the Sith weren't the only ones who could manipulate from shadows. The revelation shattered the Jedi Order's understanding of reality. Within hours, emergency teams had rescued Anakin and Obi-Wan from the warehouse. Within days, Master Yoda had confirmed the existence of inhibitor chips in clone troopers' brains. Within weeks, the Republic Senate had arrested Chancellor Palpatine, though the Sith Lord escaped custody through dark powers that killed dozens before vanishing into the galactic underworld. The Clone Wars didn't end. They evolved. Now the conflict was open and honest. Jedi and Republic forces against Separatists and the revealed Sith conspiracy. The clones, freed from their programming through emergency surgery protocols, fought with renewed purpose. They weren't property anymore. They were soldiers who'd chosen their cause. Piccolo stood in the Resolute's observation deck, watching hyperspace stream past. Beside him, Commander Rex, no longer just a clone, but a free individual, looked out at the infinite possibilities ahead. "You saved us," Rex said quietly. "Not just on Christophasis or Coruscant. You saved us from ourselves, from becoming the monsters they programmed us to be." "I just exposed the truth," Piccolo replied. "You and your brothers did the rest." Master Yoda had promised to help find a way to return Piccolo to his universe. Research teams across the Republic were studying dimensional mechanics, searching for the cosmic threads that had brought him here. It might take months, years even. But Piccolo found he wasn't in as much of a hurry as he'd been when he first arrived. Earth had its defenders. The Z fighters would protect his home until he returned. Here in this galaxy far from everything he'd known, Piccolo had found something unexpected. A new battlefield, new warriors to fight beside, new tyranny to oppose, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to prove that power from beyond the stars could change the course of galactic destiny. In the depths of space, Count Dooku stood before his master in a hidden Sith sanctum. Darth Sidious's rage had cooled to calculated assessment, his yellow eyes glowing in the darkness. "The Namekian disrupted years of planning," Sidious said coldly. "The clone army is compromised. My political position is lost. The empire I envisioned will take decades to rebuild." "Yes, my master," Dooku replied carefully. "But," Sidious continued, a thin smile crossing his withered features, "he has shown us something valuable. Power exists beyond the Force. Power that could be harnessed, studied, replicated. When we finally defeat the Jedi Order, and we will, the Namekian will make an excellent subject for experimentation." Dooku bowed, hiding his expression. He'd seen what Piccolo could do. He'd felt the warrior's uncompromising will, and he wondered if his master had finally encountered an opponent who couldn't be defeated through Sith philosophy alone. In the Jedi Temple, Piccolo meditated beside Master Yoda, two beings from different corners of existence sharing silence and understanding. "Home you wish to return," Yoda said eventually, "but changed by this place, you have been." "Maybe," Piccolo admitted, "or maybe I've just remembered what I learned on Earth, that warriors have responsibilities beyond their own strength, that power is meaningless without people worth protecting." "Then learn the Jedi's true lesson, you have," Yoda said, his expression carrying ancient wisdom, "and taught us one in return, that balance comes not from force alone, but from choices made in moments that define us. Piccolo opened his eyes, looking out at the Coruscant skyline. Somewhere in this galaxy, Goku was probably training, pushing limits that seemed impossible to surpass. Vegeta was probably brooding about being left behind. Gohan was studying, finding balance between scholar and warrior. And Piccolo was here, fighting a different war, protecting different people, but following the same principle that had guided him since choosing to become Earth Guardian. Strength without compassion was tyranny. Power without purpose was destruction, and warriors who forgot why they fought became the very monsters they opposed. The Clone Wars would rage on. The Sith would adapt and return. But now the battle was fought in the light, with truth as armor, injustice as the goal. And Piccolo, the Nemetian warrior from beyond the stars, the variable that shattered Sidious's perfect plan, would stand with those who fought for something greater than power. Until the day came when the galaxy no longer needed him. Or until the Force, through whatever mysterious methods it employed, found a way to send him home.